Shake it like a Polaroid picture. Shake it, shake it, shake it. Shake it like a Polaroid picture. Shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it.
I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Thursday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show. In fact, we just wrapped up like an hour and a half ago. And you can find me here on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back. I want to give a shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. We have a big show tonight, ladies and gentlemen, going into the weekend. Quite a bit to discuss. Tonight's theme is panic mode. Panic mode, yes, because people are in a state of panic. You will see when we get into some of these stories. Scott Ritter will be here later on in the show. We are going to kick things off with Oliver Stone and Dan Kovalik. So we'll get started with that right after I go ahead and give a couple of shout outs in the chat, ladies and gentlemen, and show you that magical thumbnail. What is going on? Algorithm says, hi, Sabrina. Free Palestine. What's up, Algorithm? Shout out to Robbie. He says, Oliver Stone. Nice. Greetings. Modislav says, I'll be here for it. Shout out to Blockbuster says, hi. Sup? Greetings, Burl says, sounds like a good one. All the experts gathered in one place. Greetings, Larez. Hey, Sabby, Eric, Corey, and RBN fam. Whoa, cool. You got Oliver Stone on. Great show earlier today with JB. Help Sabby by watching the ads. Smash the like. Thank you. Yeah, JB and I had a really good conversation. Lucy, Blue Moon Red Wine, she came on to talk about some things that have been happening with DSA in New York. Shout out to Veridia, says, hello from Brazil. Greetings, Lauren, says, free Palestine. Shout out to Jimmy, says, smash the like. Greetings, want to see more. Do we still have a social contract? I don't know if we do. I don't know. What's up, Hannah says Oliver Stone. Greetings, Saul says Trump's neck is hot in this. Shout out to John says hello, fam. Greetings, Ani says hello, RBN fam. Wow, this is going to be good. Greetings, Margaret says, Sabby, 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 who loves you, baby? Greetings, Brian says, Sabby getting Oliver Stone on the show. Amazing. Shout out to Tim. Thank you for reminding me again. I have the nails. I just got to move some things around behind me. Did you put your YouTube plaque up, Sabby? Not yet. Love ya. Hey, Eric T in chat. Free Palestine. Tear down the duopoly and stop letting these corrupt fools play in y'all faces. Free Sudan and Congo. Thank you so much, Tim. Greetings. Edward says, hi, everybody. And shout out to James says, good evening, all beautiful people. Okay. We do want to go ahead and get things kicked off here. Darius, yes, I thought Sabby was running late like Lauryn Hill. You know what, Darius? Darius got jokes. We're going to get into, we'll get into that story. Oh man. I know people coming after Lauryn Hill. Oh God. We'll get into all of that craziness. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what are we discussing tonight? Let's go ahead and show that beautiful thumbnail. What's up? Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, of course, if you don't know by now, Oliver Stone and Dan Kovalik and Scott Ritter joined. Scott Ritter will be here a little bit later. I have a different conversation with Oliver Stone and Dan Kovalik, a new series that I'm starting. I'll get into that in just a second. We're also going to discuss Trump leak audio, the leaked audio that is all in the news now. We're going to get into all of that. What was Trump talking about? He talking about dropping these bombs. We're going to get into all of that. We're also going to discuss Democrats are already trying to find a way to rig the New York City mayor race. We're going to get into the same type of tactic that they've used before with other candidates. They are now trying to use that against Zoran Mandami. We'll get into that. And last but not least, oh my God, the Essence Festival Backlash. That is Lauryn Hill there on the thumbnail, not Neil. The Essence Festival is getting a lot of backlash. And I said, you know what? I can't not discuss it. We got to talk about it. But I say cut Lauryn Hill some slack, okay? Because this is not all on her as usually as it is with not with the artists for the most part, because they're not in charge of production. But we'll get into why people are upset about that festival. Again, the theme tonight is panic mode. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Hey. What is up, Sabby patrons? How are you? If you are interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories. Ultimate, Sabinators, but they're not no haters. We also have Sabsters. Yes, we do. Don't forget about Sabbies. They're pretty cool as well. And we also have a group called Members. I'm thinking I should name that something else. Because we have members on YouTube, on the YouTube channel, and then we have a members category on Patreon. I feel like I should name that something else. I don't know. You guys let me know so people don't get confused. Thank you to all of you. All of their names are listed here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. We're giving a shout out to a new Sabby patron. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Pete Santis. Thank you. Hey. All right. So much to dive into. Brandslayer says, Sabby also talk about how Essence is funneling our money to Nigeria. Boy, I tell you, we have so much to discuss. I'm sorry. So much to talk about tonight. So again, let's go ahead and get things started with Oliver Stone and Dan Kovalik. So due to travels and also the time zone difference, we had to record this. So we recorded it, and I said I would premiere it tonight on the live stream. We'll also make a clip of this as well. But first and foremost, shout out to Oliver Stone and Dan Kovalik for having the discussion. So this is a part of a first, I would say, my first series. I'm starting a series about Vietnam, and this is the first segment about it. It is called From Vietnam to Gaza. And we had to make the connection between the two because there are similarities, but there are also some stark differences. But one thing that I think that both have in common is that there is an anti-war movement, right? And it's good to see that anti-war movement growing again. It is good to see that. So let's go ahead and get started with Oliver Stone and Dan Kovalik. And if you have not done so, folks, what you waiting on? Smash that like button. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. We'll go ahead and bring it in, and I'll push myself. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. My special guests today are Oliver Stone. He is an award-winning American director, producer, screenwriter, and actor, and Dan Kovalik, who's a human rights lawyer, professor, and author of The Case for Palestine. Thank you to both of you for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, so I guess the first thing I want to begin with, we are discussing from Vietnam to Gaza, and I have been noticing since the genocide in Gaza that there does seem to be some connections between this and the war in Vietnam. There's some similarities, but there's also, of course, stark differences. For example, there was a draft in the Vietnam War, and obviously not that in Gaza. But what I have noticed is that both these particular conflicts have been rejected by a lot of Americans. And I guess the question I have for both of you to start with, when Gaza first began, when Israel first started attacking Gaza, the polls showed that the majority of Americans did not disagree with what Israel was doing. But over time, that started to change. And so I'm curious, at the very beginning of the Vietnam War, what was the sentiment like in the United States at the very beginning of that war? We can start with Oliver.
I think you're right. I think it's very similar. I think there was no disapproval of it. It sort of happened gradually, and built up over 64, 65. And Lyndon Johnson suddenly sent in, I think, 100,000 troops, Marines. By June of 65, it was starting. The 101st Airborne went in, I believe, and the Marines, and then it grew and grew and grew. And by 1967, when I went over as a draftee, it was about 500,000 troops. Wow! But it started with advisors, as you know, non-combat advisors from Eisenhower's time, and then it through Kennedy and increased it to 15,000. But Kennedy, very importantly, was pulling out the first 1,000 but he wanted them out by October before the election. And that was on paper, and that was shared with a lot of people. McNamara was the secretary. In other words, some people will tell you, oh, Kennedy was contributing to the war. He could have been stronger in denying it, but he couldn't at that point because Americans would have turned on him. And the election was coming up in a year, and Barry Goldwater was the opponent, who was a hawk. So Kennedy was in a tough position, but he was definitely told his most intimate people that he was not going to make the mistake of going into a stupid war like Vietnam. This is really drives me crazy. And we put it into my friend and I, who's a researcher, Jim DiEugenio, have been hounding on this and put it out on his website, as well as in a film I did called JFK Revisited. Kennedy was not he was a cold warrior at the beginning, but over the course of those 3 years, he was definitely learning. He was seeing the problems. And I think that was one of the reasons he was killed. He was seeing through the machinery of this country, which is still around, which is creating wars. It's a deep state. And Dan Kovalik has written very extensively about it. He gets it. People who see through the mask see. I think you see. So we're talking about a magic act that's been going on, hypnosis of the American public. It goes again. It's the same thing. Oh, Israel's our ally. Sure, they're our ally. Well, go back and look at the history with Israel. Go back and look at all the things that they've done in Palestine since 2000, for example. I was there in 2003 on a documentary I shot. We interviewed all of them, Netanyahu, Simon Peres. We interviewed Hamas. We interviewed sorry, I can't remember the names, but we interviewed the head of Arafat. I'm sorry. It's been so many years, he gets lost. We interviewed Arafat, and we had to get out of there real fast because the Israelis on a certain date, we're going into Ramallah, where we were, and we got out on the same day, barely by the skin of our teeth. We would have been stuck in there for another 30-day siege. They made life miserable for the Palestinians in the West Bank, miserable. They couldn't go anywhere. They were always being checked. They needed papers every time they turned around. There was no free access. There was no sense of freedom. They were being watched like it is now. I mean, the same thing in Gaza. Are you kidding? In Gaza, it's 10 times worse. They're being killed outrageously. Up front, killed like that. Doctors, medical people, nurses. I saw a report today, 165 doctors have been killed since the beginning of this war. 900 medical workers, 165 doctors. Come on, to get a doctor degree, you got to work at it for a long time. These are educated people. They're being killed in cold blood because they're helping the Israelis, helping the Palestinians to survive this thing, this siege, this bombing. It's the worst, most outrageous case since My Lai massacre for the American people to deal with, and that they're hiding from it because it's not convenient. But I do think there is a consensus moving in the direction against Israel. People have to see it, and I think they are.
I think so too. Dan, I want to get your perspective about this as well. I know you remember this in the very beginning, not too long after October 7th, the polling showed that the majority of Americans were not against what Israel was doing. But as we saw over the course of, I would say, those first couple of months, those polls started to change. And then eventually it got to the point where we saw the more recent polling that shows that the majority of Americans have actually turned against Israel and do not see Israel in a favorable light.
Yeah, well, as Oliver said, he mentioned the My Lai massacre, which was a big turning point for Americans when they were able to see, that these atrocities were being committed in Vietnam against women and children. They're seeing the same thing in Gaza, mostly on social media, though. I think, and Oliver can correct me on this, I think the mainstream press is much worse now than it was during Vietnam. You had 60 Minutes going to Vietnam and showing, the carnage and showing, Oliver?
I just would modify that a bit because the press, there's a bit of a myth about the press that they were just so democratic and that they were open and they were turned against the Vietnam War. That's an exaggeration. The truth was they were very slow to turn, very slow. And it was just a few journalists at first who were progressive who put out some information that was not put out. It was a big propaganda exercise. The military and CIA controlled all the information coming out of Vietnam. They had the cooperation of the South Vietnamese government. If a journalist filed, he would get kicked out of South Vietnam. It was very difficult to get the truth out. But gradually, troops started coming home. Troops were killed. Troops were wounded. Stories spread, and it took time. It took three years, and then I guess you could say institutions like the New York Times started to shift about 68, but by that time, with so much damage had already been done, half the casualties had been sustained. It was not the press or so noble here. They assigned that role to themselves in retrospect.
Yeah, well, that's a fair point. And of course, even if I may say so, the movie Platoon that you made, which came out in the 80s, still shocked people. I mean, because they didn't know some of that stuff had happened.
I did another 2 movies about Vietnam, Born on the 4th of July, about 3 years later. And then I did Heaven and Earth in 7-8 years later in 1993. And that came out. Heaven and Earth is about the civilians in Vietnam. And I'm very proud of it. It's one of my best movies, but it was not watched in America because there was a bias in those years against Vietnam. It didn't change, but it has changed since Clinton in 97, but we gave them diplomatic recognition.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, what I'd like to say is that the American people generally, I think, are good people. When they see that these atrocities are happening, they respond. I mean, they reject it. And you saw that in Vietnam. You're seeing that now. And the students, again, as they were, I would say, at the forefront during the Vietnam period, they're at the forefront now with the encampments. And, but I'll just say one thing. I think, and again, Oliver, you can correct me on this, but I think that the university's response to the students is worse now during Vietnam. And I'll give at least one example from my alma mater, Columbia. I went to Columbia University School of Law. I tried to go to my campus a few weeks ago. It's locked. It never was locked. Okay. Columbia's locked it to prevent more encampments. And they called in the police to arrest students. The New York PD, the NYPD, was thrown out of Columbia in 1968. They were banned from campus after that. This is the first time they've allowed them back on campus. So it's a very interesting dynamic you're seeing.
Well, I'm sure it has a lot to do with the strict policies of the Trump administration. He's gone way overboard in his support of Netanyahu. We never voted for that. People who liked the possibility of his changing things from Joe Biden, who was a disaster, turning to Trump, have simply swallowed this whole concept that criticism of Israel is anti-Semitism, which is such a rape of individual thought. It's just disgusting that we can't see the difference. When you're anti-Semitic, I know what anti-Semitic is. I'm half Jewish. I know what it is because it's been talked about all our life. It's when you use certain words and you have hate speech and all that. But we're talking about a different situation. This is outright thuggery. I mean, murder. And it's been condemned by every reasonable organization in the world, including the you would know the name. You're a lawyer. The Court for International whatever.
International Court of Justice, right? Absolutely.
Attention to it at all. And the Hague, other countries too. I mean, England, which is always our ally, is shocked by this, and if not officially, it's certainly the population is weighing the alternatives to supporting Israel. This has to stop. We should have cut off arms to Israel day one, when they started this invasion. It was already we've crossed the line. We're a barbaric country, and we have to realize that our government is out of control. They're psychos.
This is true. Well, one thing I noticed as well under Vietnam, of course, you guys mentioned the protests. There were massive protests during the Vietnam War, massive protests during the Gaza genocide. At one point, there was a protest in D.C. where over 500,000 people showed up to that protest against Israel.
How many? I didn't hear you.
There were over 500,000 people that went to that first D.C. protest after.
When was that? Do you remember?
That was 2023, not too long after October 7th.
I was there. I went to that. Yeah, I've been to almost all those DC protests. Yeah.
Max Blumenthal was there. I believe Macklemore spoke at that protest. Cornel West was there. Dr. Jill Stein. There was over 500,000 people. But I noticed, even looking at the Vietnam War, when these protests were happening, LBJ then was faced with an issue. Obviously, the public was rejecting this war. And LBJ, who I'm comparing to Joe Biden at this point, decided not to run for re-election. And Joe Biden decided not to run for re-election. So these are just some of the similarities that I've noticed to go along with that. Yeah. At that time, from what I've seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I've watched documentaries about it, but it seems like Richard Nixon, when he was running, he said that he would end the war in Vietnam. And Donald Trump, when he was running, remember, he said he was going to end all of this. He put a stop to it. So I'm just noticing so many different parallels when I compare the two, even though they're two different conflicts in general. But at the same time, it's like the public is rejecting both of them. And it's just the administrations are going along with the war machine.
a little history. I mean, Nixon did say very clearly that he had a secret plan to get out of Vietnam. He had a secret plan. Well, that plan was eventually revealed to be a bit of a fraud. No, but the Vietnamese were winning the war. They had no reason to not to continue, but they put up with a lot of bombing and a lot of talk, continual talk for years. Nixon and Kissinger drew it out for a long time, and meanwhile Americans were being killed. But beyond that, Vietnamese were being killed. A huge amount. It's an estimate now that more likely 4 million Vietnamese were killed during that war. 4 million. That's like a Holocaust. That's a small country compared to Europe in World War II. It's a huge, huge damage to this country. And the bombing of Johnson was outrageous. It was we dropped more bombs on Vietnam than all of World War II. I mean, you have to understand how crazy this became. I also want to point out, you mentioned students, they're very important. The first protests were actually in Wisconsin, the University of Wisconsin, in Madison, Wisconsin. The year, I think, was 67, maybe 66. I'm sorry, I don't have it available to me right now, but my co-historian Peter Kuznick's alma mater was Wisconsin, and he was very proud of the tradition at Wisconsin of progressivism there is in Wisconsin. So they woke up to it, and other universities followed. By the time Nixon killed those, or the National Guard killed the protesters at Kent State in Ohio, then the country went nuts. That moment, that was the big moment of the turning point. Kent State. And of course, at Jackson State, a black college in the South, they killed also 4, 5, 6 demonstrators, I forgot. But it was a turning against it. And there was a strike. It was about 1970 when we invaded Cambodia. I was back 2 years in the States at that point. It was clear the Vietnam War was a disaster. It was clear from the moment Johnson said, I'm pulling out. He didn't have faith in his own enterprise. It was his deal. It was his operation. He was responsible for it. He's pulling out. That's a clear statement of his cowardice. And Lyndon Johnson also is responsible for so much misunderstanding. It was Kennedy kept saying, let the Vietnamese find their balance. They are a developing country. It's third world. Let them find their way. And Johnson opposed that. He wanted to control the situation because if Vietnam went, Cambodia, Laos, he said Cambodia, Laos, and Thailand went. Well, the North won, but was there any domino effect in those countries? None. They remained what they were. Thailand was not threatened, nor was Indonesia, Indonesia changed anyway. There was a coup d'etat in Indonesia, but I'm going into a lot of detail here. But basically, Southeast Asia has remained, as you can see, a trading partner and a peaceful entity.
And Vietnam really destroyed Johnson's presidency. You know, he tried to make the Great Society with emphasis on social programs. And by the end, I understand he slept with a sheet over his head. He was so aggrieved by the Vietnam War, which he was controlled. The predecessor of Halliburton, it was something in Root, I forget, owned
Halliburton.
Owned Johnson, and he again, the deep state, he felt he had to stay in, but he regretted it, destroyed his presidency in the same way it destroyed Biden's presidency. The polls show that Kamala Harris, Democrats did not come out for Kamala Harris because of the genocide in Gaza. Again, as you say, a very similar dynamic to what happened to Johnson.
That was surprising. I believe it. I mean, I'd like to believe it. It sounds like that people see the difference. But
yes.
By the way, it's Brown and Root. That was the
Brown
and Root. Was
Brown and Root, thank you.
They made
Yes.
a fortune during that war. A fortune.
Yeah.
So did Bell Helicopter. So did they built 5,000 helicopters for Vietnam because they had to replace all the ones that got shot down. So it was a pig out, in terms of money.
And that's true now. There was just a report put out yesterday naming 60 different companies that are making a bundle on this genocide. And Microsoft has been helping out with the genocide, for example, but that's one of many, and it does come down to money. These companies are making tons, and they're going to make tons on the reconstruction if that reconstruction ever happens. It's sick. I mean, it is very sick what's happening.
I want to mention the media because I feel like the media has been very pivotal. From what I understood, after the Vietnam War, that was the last time they showed war footage on national television. But I think what the Biden administration did not prepare for or did not expect was that during Gaza, when Israel started attacking Gaza, they totally forgot about social media. And I don't think they expected people to see those images, whether it was on X or Facebook, et cetera. TikTok was a big one. I don't think the Biden administration was prepared for the backlash that was to come. I think they were shocked that people were not supporting and backing Israel. And I'm curious your opinion about that.
You want to take that? I agree. I think social media has made all the difference here. I mean, the fact that we all, every day, all day, are subjected to videos of children dead, without limbs, thousands of children alone roaming this moonscape, which is pretty much what it is now, without parents. It's one of the, I mean, again, yeah, social media has changed how we view war because we can actually see it in real time. And that's why no one can claim they don't know what's happening. I mean, the meme that says if you wondered what you would do as a German during the Holocaust, now is true. I mean, if you're not opposing this, you're complicit in it,
Yeah, and that's a big problem because America we were always on the borderline. America, if you look at our history, we have a certain fascist impulse in this country that's deep and goes back a long, long way. You can tie it to some degree to the slavery movement because there was a lot of resistance to liberation and civil war. All these groups started to grow, and they grew through the 20th century. Ku Klux Klan, this, that. Those are basically fascist vigilante groups. So is the new right wing, whatever that is. But the neocons, which are very dangerous, they're the intellectual elite of this group, are leading this charge. They see the world in terms of power and control and domination. And that's what they're doing to all countries. I mean, whether it's Russia or whether it's China or Iran, they want to control the world, carve it up, give it American resources to prosper. Mr. Trump's policy, it's weird because he pronounces himself against war, but he doesn't seem to understand that the policy he's for, which is making America richer back again and so forth again, is going to involve a lot of antipathy and antagonism and destructiveness with countries. It's inevitable. So you're going to play along with the world and say, I'm a partner with the world, or I'm thinking only of myself, America first. I will decide who I bomb and what not. That's there's a dividing point. And I don't think he understands, because I don't think he's that educated in history. I don't think he understands the difference that he's going to have to, what he stands for. If he's going to stand for America first, and that means fuck the other people in the world, fuck the other countries, we're going to be fucked. We're going to be fucked. Which, we're making a lot of enemies right now in the world.
And I think, it's killing us. First of all, it's destroying our economy. All the money is going to the war machine while social benefits are being cut. But also, I think morally, it's cutting, it has to impact us as a moral people, to see this every day and have our government be behind this, and just like in Vietnam, the war has spread. It spread from Gaza to Lebanon right away, spread to Syria, which is a complete disaster now. And obviously it spread to Iran. I mean, it's a very dangerous situation that we're facing. And of course, Israel has nuclear weapons, which the U.S. won't even admit to, and Israel won't admit to. And again, by the way, let's, just to mention Kennedy again, he tried to stop them from getting nuclear weapons. And you see what happened to him.
Yeah. And I'm not sure that they're linked, but a lot of people believe that. Netanyahu's in the White House today, smiling and nominating as if he could nominate, but pretending he could nominate Donald to be the Nobel Prize peace winner, another Obama move, because Trump is obsessed with Obama and getting the peace prize, I think, because Obama got one. He was pissed off. They gave it to Obama. That was a joke. It set up a whole chain of reactions through time where other people who don't deserve it want it.
Yes. And meanwhile, you have, while Netanyahu's being rewarded with, military aid and all kinds of aid and grand applause in Congress. Today, the U.S. announced it's going to sanction Francesca Albanese, the UN rapporteur. I mean, we live in an upside down world.
Upside down.
Yeah, she should get the Nobel Prize, right? I mean, it shows the depravity of our ruling class. I mean, it knows no bounds.
Yeah, they're going to sanction her for doing her job. Some of us wonder, I guess more so from my generation, because I wasn't around during that time, if Bobby Kennedy had lived, what happens with Vietnam?
Oh man, a world of difference. He was like his brother. He saw the whole situation. He'd been to South Vietnam when he was a young man in the 1950s with his brother. They knew the story. They knew what was going on in the third world. And you can't fight liberation. You can't fight change. And that America, throughout that whole period, under Dulles and Eisenhower and then Johnson, persisted in a policy of resistance to any reform in these countries. From Cuba through Indonesia, through the African countries, through the Middle Eastern countries. Reform was never. The United States backed the Mujahideen in Eastern Asia, the Mujahideen, who ended up fighting the Russians because they were fighting the Russians, and then they ended up as being a problem for everybody. Terrorist organization. The United States has supported so many terrorist organizations since World War II, who are fighting for our goals, not the world's goals.
And including Al Qaeda, by the way, they supported Al Qaeda. There's that great Seymour Hersh article I always point people to from 2007 called The Redirection, where he talked about that even by 2005, the U.S. was starting to arm Al Qaeda in like groups to go after countries like Syria and Iran. And we're seeing the results of that, and again, it's totally contrary to the will of the American people who thought we were fighting against those people, fighting against the terrorists. We are the terror, that is just the truth.
This is true. I have one more for you because I know you have a hard stop, Oliver. I know that you probably received obviously backlash in Hollywood for telling the truth about the war in Vietnam. Are you surprised at the number of actors and directors and producers that have been either fired or snubbed because they have called out the genocide in Gaza?
It's hard to say. When you can't, that is a very gray matter point, because you don't know if you've been denied the job because you're a talent or because of your political position. They never tell you. It's not commercial. They always have it's not commercial is easy to say. So I think a lot of people have been, I can't say, I know that some people have definitely been on the shit list and gray listed. It's no longer blacklist, it's a gray list. Like the end of the blacklist was a gray list, if you remember correctly. That's when they went. It was the most dangerous period. They went after so many people, like Ilya Kazan, Sterling Hayden. They people who had to collaborate, because if they didn't, their career was over. So it didn't.
Paul Robeson, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. That was a great list, but I'm sorry, the phone interrupted me. No, it's I've felt myself. I've been kind of cut out of the mainstream media completely, almost completely. But it's just because of my criticism of this country's military policies over time. It continues in South America, Central America. And I think, as you know, I think we're supporting the wrong side in Ukraine. And Dan has written a great book about it because he's looked back at the causes and he looks back at the history. People don't study history. They don't know how things start.
No, you know, Gore Vidal called the USA the United States of amnesia. And that's absolutely true. And we keep repeating the same old mistakes.
Well, I want to thank both of you so much for your time. I know you have a hard stop. I think, Dan, anything you want to plan or plug before you?
Frankly, I have a haircut. That's and I'm going to Italy, as I said to you, tomorrow. So I want to look. I want to fix my hair, I guess, before I go. But Dan has been a great fighter for the truth. I mean, constantly writing books. I wish to God you could run for office, Dan, or something, because we need people like you to be in government. That's the hardest thing, is to get into government, because they always derail you with some nonsense accusations of this or that, their morality, this, that. You know, it's very difficult to enter politics and pay the price. And the money, you need so much money to get into it. You worked in the labor unions, you know this, and it's a very dire time. I think a dangerous time for this country. It can go worse. It can get worse now. It could. God, hopefully not. But right now, you can't be more barbaric than we are in supporting this genocide and not even blinking about it, not having an attack of conscience about it. That's what's so scary. It's like we've become the Germans. We don't see it.
Yeah, no, that's right. Well, I want to just say, Oliver, of course, your movies, in truth, helped make me who I am today. The two movies really that changed my life were Salvador and Platoon. I mean, really, they blew me away. And Born on the 4th of July as well. And so I owe you a lot for helping awaken me. And a lot of Americans do feel the same way. So you deserve a lot of credit for that.
Well, if you tell me Sabrina says 25%, right? 25%, is that correct in the polling? The criticism of Gaza.
Oh, it's over 50%. It's over 50% now.
Yeah.
Over 50% have now are opposed to supporting Israel. That's an incredible thing. It's
And that's across political ideologies too.
I hope people don't forget, because sometimes the memory goes away and then time changes. 6 months go by and they forget it.
Yes.
But people of Gaza will never forget it. For Christ's sake, to be treated like this, to be brutalized by American weapons of war too. I mean, we're supplying Israel. If we cut them off, it would be a different story tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah. And by the way, I'm going, I'll tell you both of you, I'm going to Bogota, Colombia on Sunday for this Hague group meeting, to talk about what can be done to help Palestine. So that should be interesting anyway.
What movie did you say?
I'm going to go to Bogota, Colombia for the Hague group meeting. It's a group of countries that want to stop this war. And they're talking about what different ways to do that. So it's being hosted by President Gustavo Petro in Bogota. So I'll be there on Monday.
The thing about it in our media.
No, isn't that incredible? No, a bunch of heads of state will be there. It'll be Francisca Albanese will be there, and you don't hear about it in the press at all. So,
thank you, Sabrina, for having us.
Thank you too. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Sabrina, and thank you, Oliver. You're the.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you did enjoy that. Again, like I told you, because of the time zone difference, and it was very nice of Oliver Stone to be able to have that conversation, because I know he was, like he said, he was on his way to Italy. So I appreciate that. That is Dan Kovalik, who is with him. It's really great that he's doing the things that he's doing, that he's going to a Hague group meeting. Someone did ask me in the chat, they said, I don't know what happened to it. I had it here. And then, here it goes. Elwin said, how did you get Oliver Stone on the show? Dan Kovalik, who is on the panel with Oliver, he helped organize that. So kudos to Dan. And thank you for asking that question. I'll get to the super chats a little bit later, just because I do want to make sure I get to this story before Scott joins, and Scott is usually on time. So let me cover this story, and then we'll get to the super chats after Scott. So the theme tonight, ladies and gentlemen, again, is in its panic mode, and I want you to see what that looks like in real time. Right now, Zoran Mandami is leading the poll for NYC mayor. Nico is so cool about this. He said, so anybody want to tell me how Eric Adams is in 4th place in the New York mayor election, despite being the incumbent? You guys are cooked. So yeah, Zoran Mandami leads the general election poll for mayor. Now, the numbers are not what you think that they are. Right now, he's at 35%, but he's still in the lead. Cuomo and Eric Adams are behind him. Eric Adams is like 11%. I think Cuomo is like at 20-ish percent. So the Democratic Party and the Democrat leadership is totally freaking out. And then this also happened. I think you need to see this. The NYC teacher union just endorsed Zoran Mandami. That is huge. I don't know if anybody, follows like these endorsements, but I've been following them since I've been interested in politics. And the teacher union endorsement is a big one. That's a big one. So, you know what's happening, right? They are already trying to find a way to stop him, just like they did with Bernie Sanders. And they did find ways to stop Bernie Sanders, right? But this one's a little bit different because it's a mayor race. And if the numbers stay as they are, and Andrew Cuomo does not drop out, or Eric Adams does not drop out of this race, that means that Zoran Mandami would win this race. So let me show you what the Democratic Party is trying to do. They should really be ashamed. First, it's the press circuit, right? They go on to all these different shows and they try to find ways to smear them. And there is one smear that they've been using over and over again with different candidates, even candidates outside of the Democratic Party. And that is the David Duke smear. Now they're using it on Zoran Mandami. Check this out.
He is a target-rich candidate, Mandani, as target-rich as any candidate that we have seen of this sort since David Duke. Remember, 1990, the Republican Party en masse, David Duke wins the Louisiana gubernatorial primary, is far and away, given the shifting politics of Louisiana at the time, a generic Republican candidate would have run away with that race. The entire institutional Republican Party turns on Duke, right? The President of the United States says, do not vote for the Republican. The Republican President of the United States said, do not vote for the Republican candidate for governor in Louisiana. He is a racist. He is a monster. And I withdraw the Republican umbrella from over his head. And Duke lost. One Democrat, as far as I can tell, has so far said he should not win. And that is John Fetterman. We have had Democrats say, I don't like the sound of this, and I don't like the feeling of that, and I'm a little troubled by this, and I'm a little troubled by that. And he is in Democratic terms, not much different. Why? Because David Duke's a Nazi. So of course no one should be a Nazi. Well, no one should be a Stalinist either.
Does everybody see how dangerous this is? They are comparing Zoran Mandami to David Duke. They're comparing him to a white supremacist. This is absolutely insane, but it's not the first time they've done it. They've used David Duke in many different ways to try to stop anybody that was running a campaign that was for the people. And by the people, I mean people that are part of the working class, not the billionaires, not corporations, not the military industrial complex. I'm going to show you all those different times that they've done this. Let me let them finish here.
In the United States, or a supporter of a terrorist group that has murdered Americans in the last 2 years. But remember, he is a supporter of Hamas, and Hamas murdered Hersh Goldberg Poland, among others, in the tunnels under Gaza, as he was about to be rescued.
he's getting the Democratic rehabilitation process that every member of the squad also received. These Democrats tutting right now will meet with him, be reassured by his statements, understand that he's running for all Democrats in New York, and that's how they will whitewash all of this. It's been done many times before. It's been done with people like Tlaib and AOC and all of the anti-Semitic nonsense coming out of the squad. And they've already started. I mean, Richie Torres, others have just been, sort of hinting here and there that they're open to, giving him this rehabilitation. So if they do that, then I think it's even more important, as you say, John, for at least one Democratic leader besides Fetterman to say something. Where's Chuck Schumer on this? I'm curious. Where's Kathy
Chuck
Hochul
Schumer will never say a word about
You guys see what's happening here? So the people voted. I don't live in New York. I did years ago, but I don't live there currently. I live in Massachusetts. I'm right outside of Boston. Do you guys see what is happening here? They can't just let the vote be the vote. Like, people came out and voted in a primary, and he's the one that won. And this is why I say the things that I do about the Democratic Party, because I've watched them do this over and over again. And it's honestly, it's disgusting. It's frustrating. That's why I don't even mess with these people, man. This is why, because of what they did to Bernie Sanders, because of what I saw them do to multiple other people, this is why I am a registered independent today. This is why. Because I can't be a part of a party that's doing this to people, man. The vote is the vote. It is what it is. But they did this before. Just last year, they used David Duke against Jill Stein. Former KKK leader David Duke endorses Jill Stein in the presidential race. I told people back then, I'm like, guys, you know how many times they've used this trick? And people took it and they ran with it. What they are doing is they're using David Duke because David Duke is anti-Israel, right? He's also anti-Jewish people, period. So what they're trying to do is all of these candidates that speak out in favor of Gaza and the Palestinian people, they're trying to basically say they're on the same, level as David Duke. It's absolutely insane, but they're doing it, and they've been doing it. Last year, it was Jill Stein. A couple years ago, it was a candidate by the name of India Walton, who ran in Buffalo, New York. She was also running as a socialist. She won the primary, and then she lost to a right-in candidate. Just a little reminder here. Bree interviewed her recently.
Mary Chairman Jay Jacobs compared you to David Duke and said, well, what if David Duke won a low turnout election in Rochester? Do I have to endorse him too?
Let's take a scenario very different, where David Duke, you remember him, the grand wizard of the KKK? He moves to New York, he becomes a Democrat, and he runs for mayor in the city of Rochester, which has a low primary turnout, and he wins the Democratic line. I have to endorse David Duke?
I bet David Duke?
See what they did here? They compared a black candidate to David. You see what they were doing there?
I bet you're not wrong. But this, I guess what I'm getting at is like, it feels incredible that there would not have been any backlash against this obvious smear campaign against you, but then you've raised the role the media played in participating in it, and also, of course, not exposing it for what it is. I mean, there's no political cost for Jay Jacobs having said that. There's no political cost for Kathy Hochul not endorsing you. There's no political cost for Brown to ignore the Democratic results of an election and do a write-in campaign. Just like there was no political cost for him really failing the city when it experienced the trauma not so long after of the Buffalo supermarket shooting, the racially targeted shooting that happened there, where you were called upon by your community to be a sort of spokesperson for the city and a voice for the city because of his absence.
And a snowstorm that followed that, where 47 people died.
Right.
Just out of sheer unpreparedness. And then, to add insult to injury, he didn't finish out his term. And, the interesting thing, Brianna, is that this year, in the Democratic primary in Buffalo, one of the candidates did polling, and I didn't run. I polled higher than any other person in the race among Democrats, over 50%.
But again, they don't want to go with the person that the people actually want. They want to tell you who you should have as your politician. Let's go back a little bit further. Do you remember a guy named Charles Barron? Charles Barron ran against Hakeem Jeffries. He lost to Hakeem Jeffries. Hakeem Jeffries was losing in the polls. This is important for people to know. I covered this a while back when I did a deep dive about Hakeem Jeffries and how he got that seat. In the polls, Charles Barron, who is a Black Panther, was beating Hakeem Jeffries in the polls. Now, Hakeem Jeffries aligned himself with Zionist organizations, got their backing. The next thing you know, this drops. David Duke endorses Charles Barron. This was 2012. A lot of people don't remember this. A lot of people see Hakeem Jeffries now, but they forget what happened before, like, and how he got there. So they did this same thing with Charles Barron, a Black Panther. And nobody stopped to think, why would David Duke endorse a Black Panther? You see this? It's true. Duke gave Barron, he gave him his support here Wednesday in a train wreck video that you can't avert your eyes from, as the former KKK Grand Wizard and Senate candidate delivers his reasons for supporting the New York City-based African-American candidate for Congress. And again, what do they bring up? The whole Israel thing, because Charles Barron was also pro-Palestine. So they've been doing this. So when all else fails, I'm trying to tell you, they'll revert to the David Duke method. And what makes things crazy, this whole philosophy of vote blue no matter who was never true in the first damn place. That was something that was concocted during the 2020 presidential election when Bernie Sanders was polling so high and above Joe Biden. And they said, oh, just vote blue no matter who, people. Don't vote. No, Bernie bros, don't stay home. Support Joe Biden, blue no matter who. But what that meant is vote for the corporate Democrat candidate, not for someone who was running on a platform for the people. And now you see with Hakeem Jeffries, he does not want to give any support towards Zoran, and he won the primary. But vote blue no matter who?
I got to tell
Democrats
you,
want to do something about it.
respectfully, I see the pivot. You know, you're good at this. That's how you got this job. But then I got to rephrase the question. You're not ready yet to say whether it's a good thing. You want to meet with him. You want to kick the tires at this juncture. You're not ready to say that this turnout, this energy that he tapped in New York is good for the party yet.
Oh, no, listen. I mean, I think that when you can increase the electorate, particularly as it relates to parts of the electorate that came out in significant numbers, which include the South Asian community in many parts of New York City, and certainly younger folks under the age of 39 in New York City, that is absolutely a good thing. And of course, he should be credited with pulling off that kind of campaign that reached so many folks.
But the tension here, if I'm hearing some possible tension, is, as you know, the Democratic Party has had a hard time with some of these, whatever you call them, democratic socialists, insurgents, more liberal, energetic candidates, even when they do what you just referred to. So we have a history here from Bernie Sanders, some of the way the AOC or members of the squad were treated, and now some of the apparent reaction where people are wondering, is there room in the tent? Not saying that I mean, you have a lot more power than him, not saying you would endorse the whole platform. But when his platform is affordability, ideas around democratic socialism, raising the tax rate in the city of New York, free buses, a different type of foreign policy, if we simplify, but much more harshly critical of the Israeli government, say, than I think the congressional leaders have been in terms of approaching the entire conflict. Is there room in the Big Ten of the Democratic Party for that right now? Or for you, is that TBD?
Well, certainly we're a Big Tent party. And I think what I'll say in terms of the House Democratic Caucus family is that every single member of the House Democratic Caucus, from Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez all the way to Representative Jared Golden and everyone in between, progressives, New Dems, and Blue Dogs, we in the House, we represent the gorgeous mosaic of the American people. That's a good thing. Now, I think what we have to do is make sure that we can more intimately communicate with the American people, that we understand their challenges and their frustrations as it relates to the desire to build an affordable economy that actually works for working class Americans, that we hear you, we see you, we feel you, and we're committed to making life better for you. And the bigger the tent, the more likely it is that we can reach the greatest number of Americans.
So the answer to that question is no, he's not willing to endorse Zoran Mandami. He just basically gave a word salad. Again, you know why? Because AIPAC doesn't want him to endorse Zoran Mandami. Hakeem Jeffries receives a lot of money from AIPAC. And then you'll see this as well. They are trying to primary him. This is interesting, guys. Some of Mandami's far left allies want to primary Hakeem Jeffries and other New York City Democrats. And one of the ones that they want to primary is Richie Torres. Now, they did ask Hakeem about this. Now, he pretends not to know.
CNN has new reporting that some progressives who empowered Mamdani to victory now want to primary you and other Democrats in New York City. The co-chair of the New York City's Democratic Socialists of America says he thinks you're picking fights, quote, with the left instead of focusing on fighting the right, his words. Asked whether Mamdani thinks those House incumbent challenges should happen, his press secretary told CNN he was declining to comment, at least for now. How do you respond?
I have no idea what these people are talking about. We are going to continue to focus our efforts as we did on the House floor in connection with Donald Trump's one big ugly bill on pushing back against the extremism that has been unleashed on the American people. It's clear to us as House Democrats, it's clear to us as members of the New York City delegation that the problem is Donald Trump and House Republicans.
CNN.
So the long story short here is he doesn't want to entertain that they're trying to get him out of there. So you see the panic mode that's happening. So he diverts back to the problem is Donald Trump because he doesn't want to sit there and focus on the failures of his own party. This is the problem with the partisan politics. People are more likely to back their party even when they are wrong. And this is why a lot of us have started pushing back on this. This is why I say all that money that went into DSA, all that money that went to, some of these campaigns, DSA could have started their own political party years ago. Years. It's been around for a long time. Richie Torres is another one that they want to primary. Richie Torres needs to go.
I think it's fair to say that my colleagues in the New York congressional delegation and we do not care about the Democratic Socialists of America. We're focused on defeating congressional Republicans in the midterms and making Hakeem Jeffries the Speaker of the House and reversing the catastrophic consequences of the Republican reconciliation bill. We could care less about Mickey Mouse primary challenges.
So since Richie Torres doesn't care about any primary challenges, you guys should feel free to vote for anybody other than Richie Torres, right? When he runs for re-election, because he doesn't care. He's another one that takes a lot of money from AIPAC. He cares more about Israel than he does about the Bronx. When have you seen Richie Torres talk about the Bronx? When do you see Richie Torres talk about the Bronx? You know his district is the poorest district in New York. Why doesn't he talk about it? He goes on all these shows. He goes across the country, does all these different speaking engagements, talking about how important Israel is. But you never see Richie Torres doing anything for the Bronx. He was another one who ran as a progressive, by the way, sold out very quickly, very quickly. Jose Vega is running against Richie Torres again. He's running as an independent. Jose Vega actually cares about people in the Bronx. But I told you guys before, I think all these people need to go. I think everybody in Congress, in the House, in the Senate, I think they all need to go. But people, they're in panic mode. They don't know what to do. So they divert it back to just pay attention to what Donald Trump is doing and don't focus on the shortcomings of the Democratic Party. This gentleman right here has some words. He is not in favor of Zoran Mandami, but he has some issues with Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo.
Okay. All right. It's decision time in New York City. And, I'm just going to go ahead and fucking say it. I don't think I think the only person right now who's actually serious about running for mayor at this point is Zoran. Yeah. I think Zoran is the only one who's actually serious about running for mayor of this town. You've got a guy who's 33 years of age. He's a fucking psychopath, a communist, right? He marks every single one of the dark triad characteristics. So he's motivated, right? He's motivated. He's motivated to win. He's motivated because he wants power. He's motivated because he's a fucking communist.
Let's go ahead and debunk him there. People need to learn the difference between communism and democratic socialism. People are just believing anything that they're told. So-and-so's a communist. Please, please, please don't give them that type of cred. Don't give DSA communist cred because they're not communists. So people need to learn the definitions of these different political ideologies. That's where I would say start there first. All right. So and to my older people, older Black people in New York, I'm saying this to you too. Please stop believing everything that you hear on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, corporate media. Please stop. Please start watching independent media. And my other thing is this is even if he was a communist, so what? What happened under Eric Adams' leadership? Last time I checked, the rent increased under Eric Adams' leadership as mayor. That's how you get here. The reason why someone like Zoran is able to run away with this thing the way that he did in the primary is because the previous leaders have let the people down. That's why people want lower rents. The rent is too damn high. There was a guy that said this years ago. The rent is too damn high. People can't pay off student loans. Young people can't buy a home. They can't start families. This has been an issue for years. So it just really weird to me that this is the argument at this point in time, instead of the future of the young people. And I think sometimes some people look around, especially sometimes some of your older people, you look around and you're like, well, I already got mine. So to hell with everybody else. No, that's not cool. That's not cool. Let's continue.
I mean, the list goes on and on. Meanwhile, we've got 3 guys and a possible 4th that can't seem to get their egos in check to beat this guy. I just saw this Slingshot Properties poll. I guess it's a local poll here in the 5 boroughs. And it showed Zoran at 35%, Cuomo at 25%, Sliwa was at 13%, and then Eric Adams was at 11%, with 13% undecided. So now I'm not the sharpest knife in the crayon box, okay? But shout to Team 4-Star, even though y'all are fucking weird now. If either Adams or Cuomo drops out, that whatever the percentage is goes to them. And that automatically puts either one of these guys ahead. If Cuomo steps down, Adams is automatically ahead of Zoran. If Adams steps down, Cuomo is already ahead of Zoran. Either one. And Sliwa wouldn't even have to drop out. But see, here's the problem. Adams and Cuomo are clearly 2 men who are not motivated by what's best for the city of New York.
Then why do you want either one of them to win? See, that was the part right there that was really, really interesting. You see that it's all about ego for them. It's about what they think is best for them. And you see that neither one of them seem to want to step aside and let go of this thing, right? So he just told you himself that neither one of them are concerned about what is best for New York and New Yorkers. So why do you want them to win? If you know they have an ego and they're not going to look out for the New Yorkers' best interest, why do you want that person in office?
Neither one of them are. Neither one of them are. Yes, I'm saying it right now. Neither one of you are serious about what's best for this city. Because I don't know if y'all have noticed this, but Zoran's support is topped out at 35%. He hasn't gone above that number in any poll. That's his ceiling. His ceiling is turning out. And the only reason why he's winning is because the ballot is fractured right now. We're looking at a bullshit plurality. And guess what? It's only going to be your fault. It's going to be everyone's fault because all of you, and yes, I'm going at Adams, I'm going at Cuomo, I'm even going a little bit at Sliwa. You guys are all being led by your ego. And because you're being led by your ego, Zoran's going to win. Zoran's going to win. And it's all because, again, you can't get out of your own fucking way. Both of y'all can't be in the race. Adams, Cuomo, both of y'all can't be in here. One of you has to go.
Eric Adams is polling right now in that poll that he's referring to at about 11%. Yeah, not good. Not good at all, considering he's the incumbent. Panic mode. People are in panic mode. They are seriously melting down, ladies and gentlemen. This is what I was trying to tell you. They are panicking and they don't know what to do. And all I can tell you guys is that it's going to get even crazier. It is July. That election is in November. So just imagine what else they're probably going to try to come up with before then. I don't know, man. I said it before. I really do think everybody running on the populist, like progressive policy platform, I really, really think that should have been a separate party. And I know it's not easy for third parties. I totally get that. But I mean, hell, since 2018, they've been fighting inside the Democratic Party. Two of them lost their spots, Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman. AOC has capitulated in different ways to try to get along with Democrat leadership so she doesn't lose her seat. So it's just, I feel like you don't change the party. The party changes you or you're gone. Let's get to some of the comments here in the chat. First and foremost, folks, if you have not done so, please do remember to smash that like button. Thank you. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. Just like a Care Bear. Thank you very much. Okay, we do have some super chats to go through. Thank you, Flower Bro. Any news on Ryan Lewis Moscata? No news yet. I looked at it a little bit briefly, but I'll check that again. Hopefully, if there's an update, I can cover it on Sunday. Thank you, Daniel. Strike for our right/org #general strike. And I really believe sometimes that's the only thing that's going to bring this ship to a halt. Is a general strike. Thank you, Perry. Democrats are mad at Trump because they say he hid the Epstein files to save himself. None mentioned that he was really protecting Epstein's bosses, Israel. Zach says, I think you should switch how you read the contributors. The biggest should be last, like before. Oh, okay. That was a tip thank you for that tip, Zach. Skylar says, I can't believe y'all landed Oliver fucking Stone. Thank you. And thank you, Melanie says, yes, Sabettes would be so cute. Or Sabacitos? Sherry. Oh, Sabettes from member Sabby. What do you think? That actually sounds cool. I actually like that. I like that. Kimmin said, I disagree about JFK. He would not have quit Vietnam. It's interesting. We're going to do another series about, like I said, this is one big series, and we're going to have different people on to talk about different aspects of the Vietnam War. Thank you, BG. LBJ was owned by the lobbyist firm of Cuddy and Sark. Ooh. Thank you, Uncle Quote Bot. We're witnessing death throes of a civilization and birth pangs of a new one. Turmoil and upheaval are inevitable. Benjamin Cream explained everything. Huge cover up plus UFOs. See his wiki quotes, page 4 details. Interesting. Thank you, Charlie Mack. Hit that like button. Legendary. Thank you. Thank you, Vilma. Oliver Stone's truth about the assassination of JFK is the real truth. Thank you, Mr. Oliver Stone. Thank you again, Charlie. Sorry, I misspelled that last one. I have fat fingers. Okay. Oh, legendary. Okay, I see it. Thank you, Justin B. Dan, would you be willing to run as a green? Please reach out to us. We need people like you to step up. Reach out to Dan. Dan is on Twitter, on X. Yeah, follow him. Reach out to him. Bryce says, definitely dope to see you get Oliver on the show, Sabs. Thank you. Thank you for the super chat, Roger Meadows. Platoon released when I was 18. Scared the crap out of me. Enlistment was off the table when I saw it. Rethought Street 21 because hit hard times, but no. And thank you for this one. FYI, the teachers union stopped the New York Healthcare Act. Interesting. I didn't know that one. Thanks, Marlon. Trump will just buy the Nobel Prize. Thank you, I always want to say Dr. Dre. Thank you, Dre Harden. Hakeem is Hawk Tua, an establishment dick eater. Thank you, Roger. New York CD 15 Torres, not just poorest in New York City, New York State, but in the United States. Thank you, Kenman. Yeah, he is not the sharpest crayon. And thank you, Chris. Sabby just wanted to say, I am proud of you for your hard work, especially getting Oliver Stone on. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. There was one that I missed. Oh, yeah, John L. Francesca Albanese is a rock star. Yeah, she is. And JMC Clinton says, Dems in NYC is sabotaging Zoran. Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. This is just the beginning. Just the beginning. There will be more. Thank you, Jong. Please watch Tudor Alexander, Why They Are Not God's Chosen People. We got to be careful what we say on here. Thank you for that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Let me check on Scott. I think he also had another stream. Let's double check. If not, I can go ahead and go to the next story. Okay, hold on. Let me double check something. All right, we'll come back to check. He might have been caught up in something. We still have other ones that I do want to cover. Wonder if I should go ahead and start those really quick. Let me do this one really quick. Thank you, Marvin. Will you ever have David Duke, Minister Farrakhan on? Nah, this ain't that show. No. This ain't it. I'm sorry, but no. I think we'll go ahead and get into the other one. I know he knows, but he might be. I wonder if he got caught up. Okay, well, let's go ahead and start the other one. Hold on. for the sake of time because I don't want to. It's 9:17. Okay, let's go ahead and start the other one here, ladies and gentlemen. This is another one that I did want to get into as well. So apparently, I don't know. I have never been to the Essence Festival. I ain't got ticket money like that, but I have been to a lot of music festivals. And in particular, this one is getting a lot of backlash. People are not happy. People want their money back. People are mad at Lauryn Hill. Lauryn Hill is a part of the group called the Fugees. I mean, some of us grew up listening to the Fugees, and people are not just not happy. And so I want to get into some of the things that happened. First and foremost, R&B singer Stephanie Mills, who I think is very much underrated. My parents used to listen to her. She also criticized it, and she was a part of it. So let's get into this. Singer Stephanie Mills slams the 2025 Essence Festival for deeply problematic issues. Her social media post cites a number of logistical and technical problems that she says negatively impacted her performance. So this is Stephanie Mills here. She's a very short little lady. But she made a lot of hits back in the day. I just feel like she was very much underrated. Now, let's see what happened. She said her Essence show clearly did not go as well as she would have liked. The challenges I encountered were multifaceted, and in my view, indicative of a broader organizational shortcoming. The scheduling and time management were severely lacking, creating a chaotic and stressful environment backstage. This disorganization cascaded onto the stage, impacting the flow of the event and ultimately diminishing the quality of the performance. She went on to say it was deeply problematic and persistent issues with the sound system at the Super Lounge. This lack of technical preparedness is unacceptable for an event of Essence Festival caliber and prestige. As a result of the technical issues, she wrote, the energy and excitement were repeatedly disrupted, creating a less than ideal atmosphere for attendees. So I do just want to add something here, because I see people do this. One thing I do want to say, guys, when you're attending these festivals where there's multiple acts that are performing musically, just one thing to keep in mind. When these sound issues happen, it's very easy to point at the artist. The artist is not a sound engineer. The artist is not involved in that type of production. They are there just to perform, sing. If they have to play an instrument, they're there to do that. But when it comes to the sound equipment and the sound engineering, the artist is usually not involved with that. And what I saw happen after this festival is that a number of people were criticizing Lauryn Hill. People are criticizing, I guess, Stephanie Mills as well. She came forward to let people know, hey, I have no control over that. I have nothing to do with that. But apparently what was happening backstage somehow transferred to the energy on stage as well. And this is something I want to mention to people. You got to keep in mind, when you're in the audience, you don't know what's happening backstage unless you get a backstage pass. So there's all kind of crazy things that happen at these concerts. I knew a friend that was also a roadie at one point. The things that go on backstage, it can be crazy chaotic back there. But you being in the crowd, you would never see it. And the idea is that whatever happened backstage, you shake it off and you go out and perform on stage. But if the sound issues persist while the artist is trying to perform, yeah, that is going to turn off the audience, but the artist has no control over that. That's not the only problem that people had with this particular festival. Let's go ahead and get into this conversation here on the Isaiah Factor. Check it out, fam.
There's a list of complaints, including Target being a sponsor despite the company's rollback on DEI policies. People are also upset about some of the musical acts. Lauryn Hill reportedly did not hit the stage until 2:30 in the morning, playing to a nearly empty Caesars Superdome. Some fans are asking if Essence Fest has lost the plot and tarnished its legacy. Joining us to talk about it, comedian and radio veteran Nate Todd Smith Schmidt, CEO of Regal Media, radio personality KG Smooth, publicist Brigitte Waugh, and Sherry Hendrinos, owner of Boost Marketing, also into public relations. And
let's pause here. The first thing that he went ahead and he said is that Lauryn Hill apparently didn't get on the stage till 2:30 in the morning. First of all, that's past my bedtime. So I don't know what's happening there. People are like, Lauryn Hill was late, but was it Lauryn Hill's fault? This is what I'm saying, right? Like, I've gone to music festivals. I've gone to Boston Calling. I've gone to all these different festivals where multiple artists take the stage, and the timing is supposed to work in such a way that there's enough time for the next artist, their sound people, to get on stage and set up their equipment and get that artist on the stage to perform. But that doesn't always happen. Doesn't always happen. I also have a question about Target. After everything that has happened with Target and the boycott that is happening against Target because of the DEI decision that they made, why was Target sponsoring this event? Don't you just think that might have been not the best idea? It's like again, who's making these decisions? Listen to what the panel has to say.
Crisis intervention. So, KG, you just got off the plane.
Literally.
From New Orleans, from the Essence Fest. What was it like? Because when we see many of the videos, some of the venues appear to be empty. The city just didn't look like it had.
It didn't feel the same. It didn't feel the same. It didn't look the same, but it definitely didn't feel the same. And a lot of what the people were saying is because of the new leadership. I was there at the convention center Saturday, prime time, 3 a.m. Saturday afternoon. Normally that place is wall to wall. It was like a ghost town. I was shocked. I was really shocked. And so I don't know. Some folks are saying the acts. I thought that the lineup was pretty dope each night. Lauryn Hill being really late on Friday night, that wasn't her fault.
That's part of the course, though.
That's the norm. That's the norm.
It's not her fault this time. They actually started egregiously late, and it's Target being a sponsor, the title sponsor. They know folks ain't doing that, but what they're saying is the ownership. You know, that they are trying to do more with the African diaspora and with our Caribbean family and take away the Black American culture that started Essence Fest in the first place.
I'm surprised that this was actually said on that show, because that is also one of the complaints that people had. Some people have been venting about it on Twitter nonstop on social media. And they said, hey, what happened to this festival? It's totally changed. You're trying to make it, I guess, more like Pan-Africanist or whatever. And that's not what the Essence Festival was before. Also, again, the Target thing to me really rubs me the wrong way. I feel like that the artists, if they knew about that, they shouldn't have. I feel like everybody should have taken a stand together and say, we're not going to perform if Target is sponsoring this show. This is what I mean about, coalitions falling apart, because some people will look at this and say, you guys got your boycott. I get it, but I'm trying to make money. So I'm going to agree to perform. Can't have that. You can't, that's the thing. Imagine if that would have happened during the civil rights movement. Imagine all those different things that would have fallen apart, all those different events that would have fallen apart. If they're boycotting in Greensboro, North Carolina, and they're sitting at the lunch counter, imagine one or two people in the group saying, forget you guys, I'm hungry. I'm about to leave and go somewhere else. Then it falls apart. And so I just don't understand why this was even acceptable for Target to sponsor this in the first place, considering what's happening. That rubs me the wrong way. And it should have rubbed them the wrong way. Will they learn from this? I don't know.
That's what the main conversation on the ground was.
And to take Caroline Wanga is the CEO, current
Yes,
CEO.
yes.
What do you see as the problem here? And is there a problem in your mind?
In my mind, it's not. I hate the diaspora wars and everything. And I've been, seeing all these things and people talking on TikTok and all the different sites. And I feel like they're using a lot of words just trying to say African booty scratcher on the cool, like just being very negative towards Africans and people that are Pan-African. And I don't like that.
And really quick, for those who are wondering what we're talking about, many say it's more pro-Africa than it is Black American and the celebration of the Black American culture.
Yeah. I mean, the lineup is pretty much all Black American. And I mean, if Essence was up for sale, like a Black American could have purchased it as well. So I think sometimes when things aren't working out or you're being evolving or, just change. Essence started in 1970. The first SFS was in 1995. It is 2025. It's going to look different. America's different. Everything is different. And I think it's a little bit, a little intellectually lazy just to say, it's an African that's leading, that owns it, and that's another one that's leading it. So they're trying to change everything. I saw the whole, Jollof versus jambalaya thing. When people always ask me growing up, what is jollof rice like? I would always say it's kind of like jambalaya, because I think everybody eats beans and rice. We season it a little differently, but I think there's a lot of ways to be together than separate. I think that's just.
I get what she's trying to say, but the thing is this, right? So the audience, they're the customers. They're the ones that are buying the tickets. And if they did not like this event this year around, they had an unpleasurable experience, you probably should listen to that feedback. I mean, I don't know what do I know, but I'm just saying that there's a reason why sometimes like companies will do surveys, or can you give us feedback about this event that you attended or whatever, for people to walk away from performers, the seats that were half empty. That obviously means that people were not feeling the changes that you made to the event. And instead of saying, well, we just, they just decided to do something different, a little, Did you poll anybody? Did you guys poll the people who bought tickets? Did you send out any type of survey to them or poll to them and ask them if they would like to see those types of changes? From what I understand, like, these tickets are not cheap. So I can understand people venting the way that they are. So if people are used to these festivals being one way, and they've already bought their tickets, especially for people who go every year, and they've already bought their tickets, and then the next thing that you make these types of changes, but you didn't tell people, and they already spent money on it. I mean, that's it, like what and the Target thing. It's just, again, who was making these decisions? Who is at the top? Like, who is sitting at the table? Sometimes I ask myself these questions, like, what happens when you don't have everybody at the table who should be at the table? So if the people aren't paid, if people pay for a ticket and they're not happy with what they got, maybe you should just listen to what they're saying. Oh, I think Scott's here. Scott, you ready? Okay, we'll come back to finish this, guys. We'll come back to her. Oh my God. Let me go ahead and bring this one up here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, my next special guest is Scott Ritter. You've seen him here before. He is a former U.S. Marine and a former weapons inspector. Welcome back, Scott.
Hey, sorry about that. I've been sitting at my desk waiting for this interview, and I fell asleep. I mean, it's been a long day, a very long and I guess intellectually intensive day. So my brain was fried, and I apologize. I wasn't disrespecting you. I just literally fell asleep, and then picked up my phone. I saw your message. I was like, oh, good Lord.
Oh, no worries. It was funny because I was like, we were just talking about being past like my bedtime. They were talking about someone showed up at 2:30 in the morning, and I was like, that's past my bedtime.
Way past
So I know
my
your bedtime is earlier. Okay, I won't keep you too long, Scott. I know you.
Oh, no. I'm here. I'm here for you. It's. Whoop, let me just say, I gotta clean up my background there. Now it's clean.
Okay, so the first thing I do want to dive into is this leaked audio that has been brought forward of Donald Trump. When I first heard this audio, I saw it on Twitter and somebody had clipped it. So I was like, is this real or is it AI? I wasn't sure at first, but then I found the real video. So let me go ahead and bring this in for those who are not aware. They apparently have discovered leaked audio from Donald Trump in 2024. And you guys need to hear this part right here.
We are getting exclusive audio from 2024 of Trump then as a candidate discussing details of a private conversation that he once had with President Putin. The audio obtained by the authors of a new book that is just out today. And for context, the president has long said that Putin would never have invaded Ukraine on his watch because of something he told him once privately. Trump had never revealed what that was.
I had a very strong conversation with President Putin, and he understood, and I won't go into the great details of the conversation because nobody has to know that, but I will tell you, it never, ever would have happened.
I don't want to say it, but did they fear me? I suspect they did.
Well, tonight we're learning those details as the audio reveals that Trump says that he threatened not just President Putin, but also China's President Xi Jinping. And this is what he told donors about what exactly that conversation looked like during a private fundraiser last year.
To Putin, I said, if you go in to Ukraine, we're going to bomb the shit out of Moscow. I'm telling you, I have no choice. The public wants it. The public. So he goes like, I don't believe you. He said, no way. And I said, wait. And then he goes like, I don't believe you, but the truth is he believed me 10%. And I told you this, he believed me 10%. Then I'm with President Xi of China, but I said the same thing to them. I said, if you go into Taiwan, I'm going to bomb the shit out of Beijing. He thought I was crazy. He said, Beijing, you're going to bomb Beijing. I said, I have no choice. I got to bomb them. We're going to bomb Beijing. And he didn't believe me either, except 10%. And 10% is all you need. In fact, 5% would have been okay too. And we never had a problem. We would have never had a problem.
So I'll pause it there. Scott, I want to get your take on that because apparently this is a part of a new book. Everybody has a book now. How about that? But go ahead. Your thoughts on that.
Donald Trump is a lying sack of manure. He never said this. It's a just straight up lie that he told. It's part of this fiction that he's created around himself of being a strong president, a strong leader. Let me just point out some realities. Okay. When Donald Trump first met Vladimir Putin in his first term, when he went to Helsinki, I believe it was, where they had a little get together. If you recall the body language coming out of the meeting when they went to the joint press conference, Vladimir Putin, who was shorter than Donald Trump, came out like the cock of the walk. I mean, he just was boom, 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 head up, chest out, confident. Trump out like a chastised little puppy dog, because that's all this orange-faced idiot is. He's not a real man. He's not strong. He's not brave. He doesn't say this. I can guarantee you 100% certainty he did not say this to Vladimir Putin because he wouldn't dare, because Vladimir Putin is a hell of a lot stronger and he has been a power a lot stronger. And he has a nuclear arsenal, because the response would have been, hey, shut up, Don. If you attack Moscow, we take you off the face of the earth. All right. It's a conversation that didn't happen. It didn't happen. Just like Biden staring Putin in the eye saying, I see the heart of a cold-hearted killer. No one talks like that to Vladimir Putin. No one. Just like no Russian diplomat would talk like that to American president, because out of respect. And Xi Jinping, you really think Donald Trump, this fat, pathetic, orange-faced idiot, this man-child, is going to talk like that to Xi Jinping, the president of China, one of the most powerful men in the world? No, not on your life. This is the lies that Donald Trump told on the campaign trail, and now they've come back to bite him. This is the same thing. If you remember when he put the tariffs on China, I've tariffed China. China's bad. My big tariffs, beautiful tariffs. They're wonderful. And we've broken China. China's called me in a panic and said, my God, we got to negotiate with you. And so I went ahead and agreed to lower the tariffs. And China's like, we didn't call you. We don't care what you do. We don't care at all what you do. We have our own policy, our response. We'll crush you if you want to be crushed. If you want to lower the tariffs, we'll have a conversation with you. But China doesn't play that game. China doesn't play that game. Neither does Russia. This is embarrassing. This is one of the more embarrassing moments in my entire life as an American, to have this fat, orange-faced fool saying stupid things. I mean, and he's literally talking about creating the conditions for a nuclear war. Because now, how does Russia deal with this? I mean, Russia doesn't want to embarrass them, but I'm pretty sure in the near future, you're going to hear comments out of Peskov and other people saying, the president must have a different recollection of the conversations he had with the Russian president, because our records don't reflect. And understand, there's no such thing as a private moment between Putin and Trump. No such thing as a private moment. He didn't get to lean in and whisper. First of all, if you get that close to Putin, the little hand waves and the bodyguards come up and you get pushed away. Even when you're the president of the United States, you don't get to whisper in Vladimir Putin's ear unless Vladimir Putin wants you to whisper in his ear. And I can just guarantee you that at no time did this conversation ever take place. Nothing even close to this. First of all, let's put it in a context. At no time during Donald Trump's presidency, which people should remember went from 2017 to 2020, was Russia threatening the invasion of Ukraine. So in what context could this have happened? See, Trump's talking in 2024 when he's trying to retroactively create an environment where he somehow stopped a war that he started. During this time when Trump is supposedly telling Putin, don't invade Ukraine or I'll bomb the you-know-what out of Moscow, actually Trump was building 20 CIA bases in Ukraine to carry out covert operations against Russia. Trump was training the Ukrainian army. Trump was providing lethal assistance. Trump was under impeachment for his magical phone call with Zelensky, if you recall all this. Where in God's name does the opportunity arise for him to have a non-existent conversation about a non-existent crisis? There was never a moment in Donald Trump's first term where Russia was threatening to invade Ukraine. Never a moment. Not one. Russia was talking about the Minsk Accords, the Minsk Accords, the Minsk Accords. And the same thing with Taiwan. There wasn't a single moment in Donald Trump's first term where the concept of a imminent Chinese invasion of Taiwan was taking place. Not at all. No intelligence assessment talked about it. China didn't have the force structure prepared for that. Zero. This is a fabrication of this goes beyond lying. I mean, this isn't just a simple lie. This is a man who lives in a fantasy world. And it's a world that's, the second it collides with reality, I mean, it's like mixing oil and vinegar in this man's brain. He is a dangerous human being. This man shouldn't be anywhere near the magic button that sends nuclear weapons flying. This is something Congress should investigate. Literally, if I were Congress, I would say, I want to investigate. Mr. President, did you make this statement? I want to hear it from you right now. We heard it, your voice in 2024, but now that you're the president of the United States, sworn to uphold and defend the Constitution, did you make such a statement to the Russians? Can you commit on record? When did you make this statement? In what context? He didn't make this statement. This is a bald-faced lie, a bald-faced lie.
Why is he, what is the point of this for him to just try to flex or something, or make people believe that he's more powerful than Putin or Xi Jinping?
100%. This is a man who can't stand reality. I mean, this would be the equivalent of me. I don't know. I can't think of an equivalent situation, but I mean, this is straight up lie. This is the equivalent of him trying to impress us with his body by coming out and saying, yeah, I bench pressed 250 pounds a day. No, you didn't. You can't even get the bar up, Mr. President. You're fat. You're out of shape. You can't get the bar up. That's, 135, not even 130. What is it? 90 pounds. You can't get that. And he doesn't need to do this. I mean, the irony of this is the strength of the United States is manifest. We don't need to flex. I mean, what he needs to do is be responsible in his leadership. We have nuclear weapons. We have aircraft carriers. We have all this. Yes, we are a declining power. We're operating off of legacy doctrine that's no longer applicable in the modern world. And if we want to update, it's going to cost us a lot of money. And I think he's been briefed by people that, Mr. President, we're in trouble. The Minuteman III missile, 50 years old. it ain't going to be upgraded anymore. We need the new Sentinel missile, but we can't afford it because Boeing sucks as a contractor because they've been spending their entire past, decades ripping the American taxpayer off with, overly long procurement cycles. And now when we need them to build a missile, they can't build a missile on time. That's why we had to put I forget what it's called, the none something law that stops a program when they rapidly go over budget, because this is how they make money. They underbid and they give an artificial timeline, and then the contract gets let and they go, oh gosh, I guess we have to do this. That's going to cost this much more money, and it's going to take this much more time. And next thing you know, a missile that's supposed to be fielded in 5 years takes 30 years to field. Instead of costing $100 billion, costs $3 trillion. That's what's going to happen with the Sentinel. He's been briefed on this, and so his instead of saying, "Hey, we got to bring this under control," he's like, "No, I've got to make people think I'm strong. I got to make people think I'm stronger than I am." But this was trying to impress, the funders. I'm shocked that he made these statements. But I can't get into the mind of this man. I'm rapidly losing. I never can say I had respect for the man, but I did my best to give him every benefit of the doubt, believing that he would try to implement the things that he talked about, peace and prosperity and all this stuff. Turns out he's just a con man and a grifter, a liar. And we saw that lie right there to the donors. And it's a dangerous lie. Imagine being the Russians right now, because for him to tell that lie means somewhere deep in his heart, he wants to bomb Moscow. Right. Now you're the Russians going, okay, bring it on, Mr. President. You see the Russians, when Trump is like, I'm very unhappy with Putin, very unhappy, and we may have to do something. The Russians went, excuse me, double the strikes on Kiev tonight, triple the strikes on Western Ukraine. Mr. President, we don't care. We're not going to publicly say this to humiliate you, but we don't care what you think because you don't matter. And that's what bothers Trump. He doesn't matter. He wants to matter. He wants people to fear him. He can't even get the Iranians to fear him. He had to broadcast that he was bombing empty sites in advance. And then he has to brag that it's the greatest military strike in the history of military strikes. All other things pale in this, because Donald Trump is, of course, the greatest, brilliant mind. It was all a charade, a fake. Yes, they dropped real bombs on real targets, but it was all just a charade. And that's the whole thing about Trump. There's nothing substantive about him. He's stupid, literally. I used to think, he couldn't be stupid because he's a New York State real estate guy. No, he's just corrupt. That's how he succeeded in New York State real estate, not because he's smart, just because he's corrupt. And now he brings this corruption, this corrupt mindset to the most powerful position in the world. And it's humiliating to watch this man literally debase everything America stands for, everything we stand for.
Well, speaking of Russia and Ukraine, it was also announced earlier today that Donald Trump is fast tracking weapons to Ukraine.
No, he's not. He's a liar. What weapons is he fast tracking? Patriot missiles? Yeah. And where's he going to get them from? There's a reason Kesheev put a freeze on it, because we don't have them anymore. And so now Donald Trump, embarrassed, has to say something. We're going to fast track. Where are they coming from? How many are there? 10 batteries. Where are you going to get 10 batteries, Mr. President? You're going to strip them from the armed forces of the United States of America? I don't think so. Even your bootlicking Secretary of Defense won't let you do that. Congress won't let you do that. So where are you going to get it, Mr. President? You saw Zelensky. Now that we got the president to commit in words, we now have to follow through to actually have him produce the stuff. He's a liar. We don't have it, but he can't admit that he's weak. He can't admit that we don't have it. Where are these missiles coming from? Nobody knows. Do they even exist? Nobody knows. Have they been produced yet? Nobody knows. It's just a president lying. It's what he does.
Is there a split that's happening for those that you've seen on your end? I've seen it on social media, but like in real life. Is there a split that's happening between those that did vote for Donald Trump because of his anti-war position? that you've seen in real time? Like, he said that he was going to end the war with Russia, Ukraine day one. I thought it was a bit of adventurous, but day one, and then also that he would stop the genocide in Gaza or whatever. For the people, some people that did vote for him because they thought that he was going to put a stop to that. Do you feel that there is a split?
There's two things. One, on Russia, first of all, you have to understand that there's very few people in the United States, either Trump supporters or those who don't support Trump, who understand the complexity of Russia. Because of Russophobia, we're just as ignorant as the day is long. So when anybody on the Trump side said, we support, his plan about Russia, it wasn't because they have deep-seated knowledge of the reality of Russia and things like that. It's just that they bought into the Trump. I got to watch my language. I'm trying to be really careful what I say. The Trump BS about wanting to be a peacemaker. It was just a lie, another grift, another con, straight up. So there's a difference between those people, and then on the Russia topic, and then on Gaza. First of all, nobody who knows anything about Gaza voted for Donald Trump, because they just know that he's a liar. They just looked at everything. He can't. How could you vote for, the Zionist crowd? I mean, I had to. When people would say, "Well, what about Gaza? What about Gaza? What about Gaza?" My response was, I am going to try and stop a nuclear war with Russia. And then if we live, maybe we can come up with a solution to Gaza. But I'm not putting Gaza ahead of stopping a nuclear war. But I knew he was never going to solve the Gaza problem, because he aligned himself with people who are anti-solution to that. So I don't think there's a crowd of people who are pro-Palestinian who are going, I'm really disappointed in Donald Trump. He didn't live up to my expectations. I think they all went, no, we knew exactly who he was when he came in, and he's delivering on the one place that Donald Trump is delivering is on supporting Israel blindly, which he and his administration have done. So I think there's a difference between that. Another more complicated one was Iran, because on Iran, he sent mixed signals on Iran. And anybody who watched it would have known, and I was one of those, that you can't sit there and say, I want to have better relations with Iran. I want to have a better deal with Iran. And that all sounds good. I want Iran to be able to trade with people, but they can't have any enrichment. You're like, well, wait a minute, there's a problem there. They're never going to agree to that. So, since you should know that means everything you're saying about wanting better relations, it's just a grift. It's just a lie. And that's the problem with Donald Trump. He's a liar about everything. He doesn't want better relations with Russia. What he wants with Russia is Russia to surrender to his will and compromise on Ukraine. You see, everything requires the other side to bend the knee. There's not a single Donald Trump political initiative that's reality-based, that says, oh, this is the reality that we have to deal with. He wants Hamas, who is kicking the living crap out of Israel as we speak. He wants Hamas to bend the knee and go away. That's not going to happen. He wants Iran, who just blew the crap out of Israel with their ballistic missiles for 12 days. He wants Iran to surrender, give up their nuclear program, give up their ballistic missiles, and go away. That's not going to happen. And he wants Russia, who is literally flattening Ukraine as we speak with 500, 600, 800 drones a night, plus some highly sophisticated missiles mixed into the mix. No Ukrainian air defense whatsoever to speak of. He wants Russia to basically forget why they went into Ukraine to begin with. I want to remind people is because of the nationalists and the assault on the ethnic Russians, the war against the Russian language, religion, culture, history, the ethnic genocide being committed against the Russians, Odessa, Mariupol, Azov, the Nazis, all of this. And Trump says he wants Russia, forget all that, bend to my will. I demand that you stop this war on terms that are acceptable to me, Donald J. Trump. And Russia's like, we're not going to do that. Donald Trump lives in a fantasy world where there is no reality. It's only, I am Donald Trump, and because I say I want this, it shall happen. And unfortunately, we have enough sycophants in the United States and around the world who play that game, just enough to make him feel like, oh, maybe if I do say it, it will happen. But the people that count, the powers out there, China, they didn't crack on trade. Russia, they didn't crack on Ukraine. Iran, they're not cracking on nuclear. Hamas, they ain't going to give up. These people will not bend the knee to Donald Trump, and he can't handle that. He can't handle that.
So when you say he wants Russia to compromise with you, what is the compromise?
Oh, he said straight up. He said Russia can't have territorial demands. See, Russia's saying Crimea is forever Russia. Now, there's some in the Trump administration. We might have to yield on that one. I'm sorry, you don't get a vote. I just want to remind every American in the audience there, we don't get a vote. You know, I don't care what you think or I think, or it doesn't matter. Russia has absorbed Crimea constitutionally. It's part of Mother Russia. It ain't going away. And Russia has absorbed Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, and Lugansk, the 4 Novorossiya territories, Donbass plus the two former Ukrainian territories. Russia has absorbed them. They belong to Russia. Russia will never yield. It's constitutionally part of Russia. It just isn't going to happen. And for Trump to come in after starting this war, I just want to remember Donald Trump started this war, and to tell Russia, no, you got to stop now. And, we may make it hard for Ukraine to become NATO. Russia's saying Ukraine will never be part of NATO. That won't happen. And we want them to yield on that. We want them to yield on the size of the military so that Ukraine can maintain 900,000 men trained by NATO as a fist poised to strike into Russia. Russia said that ain't going to happen. 50,000. And the Nazis that we empowered in 2014, Russia said they got to go away. They can never again be politically viable in Ukraine. And we're like, no, we're going to. Russia has said they are fighting this war to address the root causes of the conflict so that never again do they have to deal with the threat that was manifested by Ukraine as it existed from 2014 to 2022. Russia will never again allow that happen. This means that this war will go on until Ukraine either conforms to Russia's demands or ceases to exist. That's the reality. And Donald Trump wants the Russians to pretend that no, they can peacefully coexist with this pro-Western Ukraine because Donald Trump has decided that he's going to invest in rare earth minerals in Ukraine. Oh, yeah. Sorry, Donnie. The Russians just took over the largest deposit of lithium in Ukraine. It's theirs. You ain't going to get it. And if we wait another couple months, Russia will also take over the rest of it up there in Dnipropetrovsk, and none of your rare earth minerals will be under the control of the Ukrainian government. All of them will be under control of Russia. They don't care about your agreement. See, Russia doesn't care. Russia only cares about that which pertains to Russia's legitimate national security concerns, which do not infringe on anything dealing with American national security. It just infringes on Donald Trump's oversized ego.
So Trump is just basically flip-flopping back and forth. When he met with Zelensky during that public interview that we saw in the Oval Office, when he met with him during that time and he told him that he was running, he said, you don't have any cards left to play. I thought he said back then that Russia would have to get Crimea, that it would belong to Russia. But now he just keeps going back and forth. And then also, I think, aren't the people in the Donbass ethnically Russian?
So are the people in Zaporizhia, so are the people in Kherson. They are ethnic Russians, who have made a decision. I just want to remind people that the people that took over in the coup of February 2014, the Maidan Revolution, was a coup backed by the CIA that brought into power a Ukrainian nationalist identity linked to the ideology of Stepan Bandera. In the West, people have said, well, that's not a big deal. No, it's huge. Stepan Bandera is the national hero of Ukraine today. They have children camps throughout Ukraine where they wear Nazi uniforms and they perform Nazi salutes. This is happening right now. They just graduated a whole bunch of new more. Over 50% of the Ukrainian army wears swastikas and some sort of Nazi tattoos because they sing songs about Stepan Bandera is our father. This is our fatherland. Ukraine is a Nazi state. We can pretend it's not, but it's a Nazi state. This is the reality of Ukraine. These people came in and immediately declared war on ethnic Russians, whom they view as lesser humans, subhumans. They call them orcs, Moskuls. They call them all sorts of names. They have declared war against the Russian language. They outlawed it. How can you do that? Then they declared war against the Orthodox Church, ongoing, desecrating the oldest church in the Orthodox, in the Orthodox realm, in Kiev, desecrating it. They physically declared the Russians to be terrorists. In April of 2014, they initiated an anti-terrorist operation, ATO, against the Russians of the Donbass. And they singled them, they bombed civilians. They sent the army in arbitrarily. There's videotapes of Ukrainian soldiers walking down the streets, just firing into the apartment buildings of the Russians, laughing as they fire into them. They don't care. When we talk about the rape of Mariupol, it's literally the rape of Nanking. If you remember your history of World War II, when the Japanese went into the Chinese city of Nanking and the deprivations they showed, the Chinese beheading, raping, murdering, that's what the Azov Nazis did when they took over Mariupol in 2014. The physical rape and destruction of the ethnic Russians of Mariupol. They burned Russians alive in Odessa. They tried to physically take over Crimea, but they were stopped by Russian patriots who rose up and said, not one step further. Then the little green men showed up and Crimea became Russia. But the point is, the Ukrainians have been declaring war against the Russians of the Donbass, treating them as terrorists. And this is what people wrote. I could just guarantee you, every American in your audience, if you were subjected to this, if a power came in and treated you like this, you would rise up.
This is one
you
I
would rise
think,
up and oppose this. I can guarantee it.
This is
So-
what I got
so,
it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, this is one I think a lot of people on the left got wrong in the beginning. I'm just being honest with you. And I think you may have seen it too. A lot of people, when this war first kicked off, a lot of people on the left were saying, we got to stand in solidarity with Ukraine, not knowing about the history of it, like what you're talking about. I think, a lot of people on the left got Gaza right, but we had already kind of known, more about that situation. But I think a lot of people with Ukraine and Russia, they just did not know the history of it.
Yeah, one of the problems is that, again, we have been subjected to Russophobic pressures from the government, from the media, from academia. There's no vector in American society that that normally is used to influence the American audience. In the universities of America, the pro-Palestinian cause is manifest. People, even though there's a strong pro-Israeli element in American universities, there's also a strong pro-Palestinian. So there is a dialogue taking place in academia. The media, even though it's heavily influenced by pro-Israeli elements, the media does and has treated this issue fairly on occasion. And the American population, is aware of the fact that there is a disparity between the Israeli narrative and the Palestinian narrative, wherever you stand on it. So it's not unthinkable to say maybe the Palestinians have a point. But on Russia, we had the whole Cold War presenting the Russians as the evil empire, the bad guys. And then when the Soviet Union collapsed, we immediately started treating Russia as a cartoon character. You remember that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where he was a Russian cop who had to come to America and help or whatever, but the Russians were alcoholics who drank and wrestled with bears and had thick accents and looked stupid. And we're just, we saw a Training Day, Denzel Washington's character gets offed by the Russian mafia here in the United States because they're very bad and very dangerous. We can go on and on.
Or the guy from Rocky 4, or he tries to beat up Rocky, he kills Rocky's friend.
Yeah, he killed Apollo Creed. You can't kill Apollo Creed, but I will murder you. Whatever. This is the way the Russians are treated. And then what happened is, we controlled Boris Yeltsin for a decade while we literally economically rape their nation. It was so bad that the charge of the affairs of the U.S. Embassy in Moscow, Mr. Mary, number 2, in 1994 wrote a memo called the New Long Telegram, sort of a play on George Kennan's Long Telegram of 1946 that set up the policy of containment and began the Cold War. He wrote a memorandum saying, hey, our support the potential of Russia to create democratic institutions. I want to say that one more time because everybody says that Vladimir Putin is the guy who prevented this. No. We did it. America, by blindly supporting Boris Yeltsin, who put tanks in the street of Moscow in October 1993 to go to war against the Russian parliament. I don't know if people remember that. He fired on the parliament, killed parliamentarians, sent the army in there to hunt them down, burn them out, terminate Russian democracy. And we continued to support him, and we opposed any real democratic resistance to Yeltsin. And Mary said, we're literally destroying the potential of democracy in Russia. This is the reality. So when Putin took over and began to rebuild Russia, we didn't want that. And rather than understanding the context of it and respecting Russia for what it is, the reality of Russia, we began to paint Vladimir Putin in the darkest of terms. He is the KGB man. He is an autocrat, a dictator, the whole thing. So Americans today, when they think about Russia, the first thing they do, if I ask an American to describe Russia, I can guarantee you 8 out of 10 will come back with Putin. So when you have an entire nation of 150 million people defined in the persona of one person who we don't know. Nobody, I mean, you've probably seen Oliver Stone's interview with Vladimir Putin. Many people have. It's a very human interview, etc. It gets closer to the reality of the complexity of Putin. But no, our national security establishment is staffed exclusively with people who have written PhD thesis on Vladimir Putin being the brutal dictator that he is. He's not. But they have, in order to get into the club, you have to have that entree. You can't write something saying Vladimir Putin is the greatest thing that's happened to Russia, since Peter the Great. He is rebuilding and redefining Russia. Russians are falling in love with Russia. Russia is economically viable, politically stable, and not a threat to the world. Oh God, if you wrote a PhD thesis about that, you would never even get an invitation. In fact, you'd have the FBI kick down your door and come in and investigate you. So academia has produced a bunch of clones, anti-Putin clones who are now in government, and then they have the revolving door with the media and academia, and they come back and they get on TV. How many former CIA officials do you see? I mean, you get the former CIA station chief. He doesn't like to talk about the fact that he was incompetent and got rolled, and his entire team got arrested and kicked out of Russia because he's stupid. But he now comes over and they say, "Well, Steve, you're a Russian expert." He's not really a Russian expert. He's just an idiot who can't spy. He's a bad spy. But now he's supposed to talk about all the insights that he has. His job is covert operations, information operations. His job is the black art of propaganda. His job is regime change. You really think that's the man that's going to come here and talk to you about Tchaikovsky, the culture of Russia, the history of the Orthodox Church in Russia, or speak about Russia in complimentary terms? No, but that's all they put on there. And so the American public is programmed to be ignorant as the day is long about Russia. That's the sad truth. At this moment in time, when the American public should be educated and informed, they're not. And I can't blame the left. It's an American problem. This isn't about right or left, because the right is just as ignorant too. The sad thing is, there's no country easier to understand today than Russia. It's accessible. You can visit it. They want you to visit it. They won't, as long as you don't do something stupid like put drugs, bring drugs into the country, or or you got to respect the laws. And free, they don't have quite the same free speech we have. So you can't stand up on Red Square and go, Vladimir Putin sucks, donkey, whatever. You can't do that. But you can go to a cafe and have an honest to God discussion and debate with Russians. They will answer questions. You can ask questions. I get squeezed harder on Russian media than I do on anything in America. They ask tough questions. So it's not free speech in the American standpoint, but there is not a restricted flow to access the information that is necessary to know to understand the world we live. The Russians are highly educated, very knowledgeable about the complexities of their world and our world. And so there's no excuse for us not knowing about it, except the wall, the psychological wall that we've created that says they're bad. We have to stay away from them.
Scott, this question here, someone brought this up a couple nights ago, and it's back up again. Can you ask about the Russian scientists in Iran? Are you familiar with
the Russian scientist? I mean, is there a? I mean, there's Russian scientists in Iran, but this is the Russian scientist. So I don't know. I will say that Russia has several hundred technicians working in the Iranian nuclear program, the Bushehr reactor. Russia completed that reactor, built that reactor, and brought it up to speed. And so the Russians are there to make sure the reactor operates safely and things of that nature. Russia has technical relations with Iran on some military aspects. But I mean, the Russian scientist, I don't know who the Russian scientist is. I need to know more in order to be able to tackle that one.
I want to pivot to this is a really big story. I'm sure you've heard of Francesca Albanese. She's the UN rapporteur. For those who are not aware, the U.S. government is sanctioning Francesca Albanese, who we say I think should be getting the Nobel Peace Prize.
100%.
Exactly. Marco Rubio let the cat out the bag the other day. Today, I am imposing sanctions on UN Human Rights Council Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese for her illegitimate and shameful efforts to prompt the ICC, action against the U.S. and Israeli officials, companies, and executives. Albanese's campaign of political and economic warfare against the U.S. and Israel will no longer be tolerated. We will always stand by our partners in their right to self-defense. The U.S. will continue to take whatever actions we deem necessary to respond to lawfare and protect our sovereignty and that of our allies. So again, for those who are not aware, Francesca, again, she should be the one receiving the Peace Prize. And I want to mention this from Chuck Modi, just as a reminder to everybody, your friendly reminder that this fascist, tyrannical, war criminal speaks for the entirety of the U.S. Senate. See, people forget this. Everybody voted to confirm Marco Rubio as Secretary of State in the Senate, including Bernie Sanders. And I remember I called this out when it happened. So a lot of this stuff that you're seeing taking place with foreign policy that Marco Rubio, is a part of. Also, he was a part of the attempted deportation of the Columbia student who was a part of the protest. That was Marco Rubio. But to this point, this is absolutely insane. I mean, Francesca is getting in trouble for doing her job.
Well, not just for telling the truth. I mean, that's the thing. She's not an irresponsible person. In fact, if you know anything about the UN, and I worked there for a number of years, she is conditioned not to seek controversy. She's conditioned to find the middle ground. She's conditioned. This is her approach, and oftentimes that leads to people saying that the United Nations is weak and ineffective because they take such a neutral position. And she's somebody who came up through the system, but the situation in Gaza is such that there can be no neutrality. I mean, it's at the point now where you have to call it out for what it is. There's no softening of the position. And this is a reality that's been manifested around the world as people recognize. I mean, it's funny that Rubio is singling out the International Criminal Court, but what about the International Court of Justice? I'd probably have to dig a little bit deeper, but since she's a UN official, I don't think she pays as much attention to the ICC as she does to the ICJ, which is actually the court that is derived from the powers of the United Nations Charter. But it wouldn't be the first time that Rubio, showed his ignorance. But I have to be careful because maybe she is, somehow attached herself to the ICC's jurisdiction on this. But she is just saying this is genocide. What's happening? It's genocide. There's no other way of putting. What I would ask people to do is take the time to go and research the history of the Warsaw Ghetto. The Warsaw Ghetto, Warsaw was the capital of Poland. And what the Germans did in the ghettos, the first thing they did is they took the Jews of Warsaw and they consolidated them into a single area, concentrated them. And then they began to transport them out. And then they began the destruction of the ghetto. Literally, everything that was done to the Jews of the Warsaw Ghetto is being done to the Gazans of the Palestinians of Gaza. It's the same thing on a scale that's even greater. This is literal genocide. It meets everywhere. The Israelis themselves can't even defend this anymore. They will say, no, it's not genocide, but they admit, they have their soldiers are saying it's a free fire zone. We go in there and we're allowed to kill everybody. Everybody. We do without any consequence. None. There is a battalion, the 97th Battalion, and it's a religious affiliated battalion. It was created so that there was a vehicle for a particular brand of Orthodox Jew could join the IDF and still be able to, maintain their religious cultures. But it was hijacked by what they call the settlers on the hill, the Brooklyn Jews, these fanatics who come in from the United States and steal people's homes and all this. They came in and hijacked this. They had to be moved out of Palestine and sent to the Golan Heights because even the Israelis said these guys are just raping and murdering and killing, and it's out of control. But then they've taken them and they've brought them back to Gaza and they celebrate their activities. Now, this most recent ambush of Israeli forces hit the 97th pretty hard. It's a brutal but wonderful example of karma, if you ask me. I'm not supposed to promote violence, but the people who committed some of the most outrageous atrocities against the Palestinian people over the years were brought to justice by Hamas. But we have Americans there right now. Americans are there as contractors who are killing Palestinians with no consequence on videotape. They're bragging about it. This should be, the FBI should be seizing these videotapes and arresting these people, and they should be charged with murder and war crimes. But no, they're going to be given medals and paychecks, and because the Palestinians don't matter. This is what Ms. Albanese was talking about. This is what she's been trying to bring attention to. And now she's labeled, a practitioner of lawfare against the United States. Freedom of speech means something. Freedom of speech means you're free to speak. And if the United States is concerned about her words, then our response should be to put out better words. If we don't agree with what she's saying, then we need to say it better and win over the hearts and minds of people. But we can't because she's right. And so the only choice we have now is sanctioning, bullying, using the power of the United States to suppress and oppress. She deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. And if she doesn't get it this year, then the Nobel Committee should just disband.
Yeah, I saw she was on Democracy Now! For those who, I think that's the first interview she's probably done since this announcement was made. But just to show you guys how ridiculous this is, and shout out to the person who made this comparison, Trita Parsi. The man below is the founder of Al-Qaeda in Syria. The U.S. just took his organization off its terror list and lifted sanctions on him. The woman below is the UN rapporteur of Israel and Palestine. The U.S. is about to impose sanctions on her. Let that sink in. So the guy on the left, that's Jelani, who they apparently put in a suit and gave him a haircut. And now the U.S. patting him on the back in Syria. He's leading regime change there. And then you have Francesca here. Like, it's just, I feel like I'm living in an episode of The Twilight Zone. This is absolutely insane. And some people are asking, like, well, how can you sanction an individual?
Well, I'd have to see what the sanctions are. There can be travel bans. There can be secondary sanctions imposed on people who support her. I'd have to see specifically what the sanctions are, but I would imagine that one of them is that she will be denied the ability to enter the United States. I don't know that, but I'm just saying that this is Marco Rubio. Maybe that's something that he could do, but financial penalties for people who support her financially. I mean, there's just a variety of tools available to that. We sanctioned individuals all the time. If you take a look at the sanctions list that we put out against the Russians, it's not just companies, but we target individuals as well. So, I mean, one of the things that they can do is by sanctioning her, for instance, if she were to create a charity to raise money for, helping the children of murdered Palestinians, because she's a sanctioned individual, anybody who contributed to her charity could be, criminally charged, things like that.
This is crazy.
Yeah, no, it's insane. Welcome to America. I mean, we've stopped being anything that remotely resembles what the founding fathers wanted us to be. We're not the purveyor of liberty and justice for all. We're not about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We are literally a terrorist organization that bullies people, murders people, promotes genocide, and then we do it in Orwellian fashion, where we just use doublespeak to disguise the crimes that we commit.
Yeah, and I wonder about this as well. I mean, you guys think about the optics. They invited Netanyahu in and had dinner with him, but they sanctioned Francesca.
Yeah, but they didn't just invite. He showed up with a suitcase full of his dirty laundry, and he makes the Department of State clean and fold his dirty laundry. It's something that the United States State Department has always created a service. So let's say I'm a diplomat who comes over to meet with the president or secretary of state. While I'm here, my laundry will be cleaned, because you don't want to send your laundry out for security reasons and all this stuff to get dry clean. So the U.S. government will take and clean the laundry, and that's okay. That's legitimate. But what Netanyahu and his wife do is they bring in suitcases of their dirty laundry just to humiliate us. It's a pure alpha dog maneuver. Yes, America, we're letting the prime minister of Israel piss on us, literally, by bringing in his dirty laundry so that it can be cleaned by Americans to show that he is superior to us. This is what's going on. This man is a disgusting human being, the head of a criminal genocidal state, who doesn't like us. I remind people, he and the Israeli Mossad, they were the spy masters of Jonathan Pollard, who in the 1980s stole the greatest secrets of the United States of America. The code book with all the codes that we had broken, it cost us billions of dollars to do that. The American strategic plan to go to war against the Soviet Union if we were attacked by their missiles. He stole all this on the orders of the Israeli government, who received this information. And because they're the good friends of the United States, they turned around and gave it to the KGB. This is during the Cold War. They gave it to the KGB to get better immigration rights for Jews who wanted to leave the Soviet Union. When Pollard showed up in Israel, Netanyahu greeted him, and he said, our job is to squeeze everything we can out of the United States and then let the wind blow them away. That's the man that Donald Trump just invited into the White House. We're cleaning his dirty laundry, and we're just bending over to give him everything he wants. He's not a friend of the United States. He's an enemy of the United States. But for whatever reason, we've bought into the fiction that somehow Israel's the greatest thing since sliced bread when it comes to promoting American values. No, Israel's the exact opposite of anything America ever stood for.
Yeah, it just it makes me it honestly like makes me cringe. Like honestly, and I have to think about the timeline here. One more question for you, Scott. When I look at the timeline, how long is this conflict with Russia and Ukraine supposed to continue? I can't even believe it's gone on as long as it has. And then also with Israel and Gaza. Does Israel and Gaza even get resolved under this presidency? Because Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu were talking about, we found a couple of countries to take them in. So they're talking about ethnically cleansing the land, the land.
They're talking about emptying the Warsaw Ghetto. Is what they're talking about. Let's just call it what it is. Let's not pretend it's anything other than a Nazi-like elimination of a targeted population. That's what they're talking about. The bad news for Trump and Netanyahu is there's this organization called Hamas, and they're not losing. And they're just going to continue to fight. So this will go on for as long as Hamas can continue to resist. And Hamas has shown the ability to resist in sustained fashion. I mean, they're increasing the scope and scale of their resistance. So we'll see. I would even speculate that Hamas may be planning another October 7th type attack into Israel, not on that same scope, but just to send a message to Israel that you don't get to only come on to Gaza and fight, that we're going to take the fight to Israel, because this most recent ambush took place very close to the border between Gaza and Israel. So Hamas, instead of being driven into the center, is starting to expand its operations out. So I wouldn't be surprised if someday we wake up to find out Hamas took over another kibbutz just to send a signal to Israel that, you don't get this fight isn't determined by you, it's determined by us. Russia, this is a conflict of existential proportions for Russia, literally a conflict that their survival as a modern nation state depends on the outcome. Russia can't afford to lose. Therefore, this war will continue until Russia wins. And Russia has made it clear that there's no calendar attached to this. The negotiator Medinsky said in Istanbul, the last round of negotiation with the Ukrainians, that it took Russia 21 years to defeat the Swedes, and they're ready to do that now. They said if this war could go on for another 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, whatever it takes, Russia will not stop until Russia achieves the outcome that Russia demands that must be achieved. So Russia will outlast Trump. They will outlast anybody in the European Union. They'll outlast Zelensky. And sadly, they'll outlast another million Ukrainians if that's what's needed. Ukraine's losing this war. I don't know why people don't quite understand that. Just because Russia's not getting the big arrows on the map, Russia's fighting a different war. To give you an example, 2 weeks ago, I think the casualty figure for the Russians was 156 dead in a week. Now, just so Americans understand, in the Vietnam War, when we started bringing home 200 American boys in body bags a week in Vietnam, it broke the back of America. So we're not talking about an insignificant number of casualties here. 156 dead a week is a heavy load. The Ukrainians in that same week lost 1,500 and some odd people dead. All right, so we're literally talking about, orders of magnitude. It's 100 times. For every Russian that dies, there's, let me make sure my math is right, 156. If it's 10, it's 1,000. If it's 100, it's... Okay, so I'm sorry. So it's 10 to 1. For every Russian that dies, it's 10 Ukrainians that die. That's an unsustainable, kill ratio. For every Russian that dies, 10 Ukrainians die. And these are the numbers the Russians don't add into their calculations. For instance, the strikes that are taking place on a daily basis on the concentration of Ukrainian forces in the rear. The Russians don't know how many they kill. They drop bombs on a barracks, it collapsed the barracks. They don't know, so those numbers don't get counted. So the fact is the Ukrainian numbers are probably, several times higher than this, but 10 to 1 loss ratio. In Russia, every every month is bringing in 40,000 new troops. Now, if they lose 100, let's say they lose 200 guys a week. All right. So in a month, we're talking about losing 800 guys. Now, let's say it's a 3-to-1 wound ratio. So 8, 16, 24. Russia in a month is losing 3,200 guys dead and wounded. They're recruiting 40,000. Now, I'm just a simple Marine and math is not my forte. But even I know that if you're losing 3,200 and you're bringing in 40,000, you ain't getting weaker, you're getting stronger. The Ukrainians, on the other hand, are losing 1,500 guys a week. So we add that up, and they're losing more than they bring in. So Ukraine's getting weaker, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse for them. And another example, just to show how this happens on the battlefield. As Russia is moving in towards, there's a city called Pokrovsk, and there's a lot of fighting going around Pokrovsk right now. It's a sort of an important hub, communications, logistics hub. If it falls, it puts the Ukrainians in a bad posture. So the Ukrainians, in order to reinforce, they had to pull people out of the line. And they pulled them out of a relatively quiet part of the line in Zaporizhia. And they withdrew a couple of brigades to send them up to Pokrovsk. It didn't work. They got bombed. They got killed. They didn't even make it. They're dead and all that. But when they pulled it out, the Russians were ready, because the Russians went, oh, guess where we're going to attack next? Right where you took the troops out. And now they're advancing there. And this is what's happening to Ukrainians. Every time because they lost all their reserves in Kursk. They went into Kursk last August, put 76,000 troops in there, and they're all gone, dead, finished. There's nobody else. There's no reserves left. So now what they have to do is they have to rob Peter to pay Paul. They have to pull people off a front here to reinforce a Russian success here. And as soon as they pull them off, because the Russians have overwhelming manpower superiority, the Russians begin to attack here. Now the Ukrainians go, so now they have to move people here to here, then the Russians attack. The Russians are putting pressure on the entire front. And this will go on for as long as necessary. And it won't stop until either Ukraine surrenders or there isn't a Ukraine left.
This is what they mean when they say till the last Ukrainian. They'll fight till the last Ukrainian.
Sabby, I wrote an article in June of 2023, so we're coming up on 2 years, in my Substack. Finally, the Bull Charged is the name of the article. I would invite you and your audience to read it. I'll send you a link if you'd like, because I make that point there, that all this talk about supporting the summer offensive and all this stuff, the counter, because you remember in June, we're all talking about the great Ukrainian summer counteroffensive that's going to win the war and all that. It was always a joke. It's always been about sacrificing Ukrainians. And we cheer the loudest when the Ukrainians, like a bull going into the bullfighting ring, they cheer for all the people. The bull's going to die. You're cheering literally for the death of the bull. And this is what we've been doing for so long. We are cheering this blood sport. Ukraine has become a blood sport. If there's one kind of life in the world today that has less value than a Palestinian life, it's the Ukrainian lives. We claim to care about them. People say we care about Ukraine. People put the flag up there. But we're responsible for the deaths of more than 1 million Ukrainians. 1 million. And it's our fault. Our fault. And now it's just going to continue to happen and go on. And then what's going to happen is that the Ukrainians will become, again, the equivalent of the people get mad at me when I say this, but I said early on that what's going to happen to the United States is we're going to become so numb about the atrocities committed against the Palestinians that it's just going to blend itself into something where we stop being disturbed by it. There was a time if the Israelis dropped a bomb on a camp and there was a man or a boy trapped inside burning to death, and we watched that, we were upset about it. There's a time if we had an audio tape of Hind Rajab begging to be rescued by the Red Crescent, and then she was murdered by Israeli gunfire, that we were upset about it. Every day, 147, 150, 220 Palestinians are murdered by the Israelis and the Americans in Gaza. People who are simply trying to get water for the children who don't have clean water, trying to get food for their starving family. That's their only crime. And they're being murdered to prove a point, to establish a presence. And that they're dropping bombs on schools. They're dropping bombs on hospitals. It happens every day. And Americans wake up, and instead of crying, throwing up, the normal things you would do when confronted with atrocities this level, we just move on because we're numb to it now. The Israelis have succeeded in turning mass murder into a mind-numbing exercise to the extent that because we can't absorb the pain anymore, we collectively just move past it. Fortunately, there are people like Francesca out there who continue to hold the moral compass up there and shine a light on this. But it's really disturbing how accustomed we've become to large numbers of dead Palestinians. And the same thing's happening in Ukraine. We've just become accustomed to large numbers of dead Ukrainians, and all the people out there that claim to be supporting Ukraine, they don't. We're not the friends of the Ukrainians. We have never been the friends of Ukrainians. People who claim to be the friends of Ukrainians don't know anything about Ukraine. We simply like Ukraine because they're against Putin. They're against Russia. But we don't like them enough to say, hey, maybe we should stop the killing. And we're just going to allow even Trump to show you the hypocrisy of this fat orange-faced madman. He claims he wants to stop the killing. So his solution is to give more weapons of death to Ukrainians, knowing that they're not going to change the outcome of this war. All it's going to do is require a more intense response by the Russians that will kill even more Ukrainians.
And to let everybody know as well, one of the things that Francesca Albanese stated is she named 60 companies that are directly profiting off of the genocide in Gaza. And it's not what you would think. Like, we all know, of course, like we talked about before, Palantir, we know about, the MIC, that type of stuff. No, I'm talking about tech companies. I'm talking about Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT here. Like, it's not all MIC, like it's companies that you wouldn't think of. And I just find it interesting that once she put that report out, now here come the sanctions.
Oh yeah, because that's Israel's Achilles heel, is the economy. If you crush Israel, why do you think we bomb the Houthi? We bombed the Houthi because they succeeded in shutting down Israel's second largest port, bankrupting it. That's why we bombed them. And they're doing it again now. They're sinking ships. They're strangling that. The Iranians struck Haifa, the largest port, destroyed the port facilities, destroyed oil facilities. Israel's in a lot of trouble economically. And what we can't allow, we being the United States government, is any notion of a boycott. Because the moment you're able to successfully boycott companies that do business with Israel's over. It's finished. It's finished. It's gone. You want the quickest victory in the world? Don't wait for a BDS boycott or the divestment sanction movement to tell you what to do. Research your own. And if every American woke up in the morning and said, I just refused, you don't have to announce it. Just do it. I refuse to buy from this company. I refuse. You don't have to make an announcement because you don't want ICE and the FBI coming after you. Just do it. And it will destroy Israel overnight. 100% destroy them overnight, because they can't survive without this injection of capital that comes from these companies that you speak of, from the American tax. Ted Cruz just talked about pushing a bill for $240 billion, $240 billion, that's with a B, dollars to Israel. Now, the last time I checked, was the senator from the state of Texas that just got slammed by a flood. And we still have people in North Carolina that have been slammed by flood. New Mexico is getting slammed by floods. People in Maui still are recovering from the fire. We have American infrastructure problems. And this America First senator wants to send $240 billion to Israel. That's the crux of the problem here, that people are willing to sacrifice America for the benefit of this postage stamp sized nation that's practicing genocide and doesn't stand for anything that is reflective of American values. Israel doesn't have a constitution. Israel, so you can't. It's not a republic. They don't respect the rule of law. They don't respect international law. Their military is mass murderers. They are committing genocide. They don't believe in free speech. We can just go on and on and on. And they don't like us. That's the other thing I just want to remind everybody about. They don't like us. They disrespect us. They're not pro-America. They're anti-America. USS Liberty, Jonathan Pollard, the theft of American nuclear material, the disgrace, the way they debased American Marines in Beirut. We can go on and on. Barack Obama's White House was totally saturated with Israeli listening devices, spying on the President of the United States. So was Donald Trump's White House the first term around. So was Joe Biden's White House. The Israelis spy on America more than any other nation in the world. And we give them all of our technology. They still go to steal the ones that we don't give them. It's the biggest threat to the national security of the United States. And yet Ted Cruz wants to send them $240 billion. Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, who should be protecting us from Israel, says that his number one priority, this is the director of the FBI, is the security of Israel, not America, Israel. Dan Bongino, big loudmouth dude on, I'm so America, I'm so pro-America. My highest priority is the security of Israel. It's almost like these people are all Manchurian candidates. If you remember the Manchurian Candidate, the movie, I forget the name of the guy, Dan Parcell is the kindest, sweetest, most kindest gentleman in the entire world. That's what they were programmed to say. And like once you become in the U.S. government, they flip over the Queen of Spades or the Queen of Diamonds or Queen of Hearts, and Israel is the greatest nation in the world, and we must do everything we can to secure Israel. No. Israel is the worst thing that ever happened to America. It's destroying America. They've taken over America. They've debased America. Every American has the blood of Palestinians on their hands because of the state of Israel. Every American, me included, you included, we all collectively have the blood of Palestinians on our hands because at one point or another, we didn't do enough, or we were silent when we should have spoken out. We have disgraced ourselves because of the state of Israel. And we have to be careful now because they've weaponized American speech. We'll be called, I don't know about you, I'll be called an anti-Semite for what I said here tonight. And that's like being called a racist. It's like, oh, you're a bad person, you're an anti-Semite. I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm just anti-genocide. I'm anti-nations that are opposed to the fundamental values that are supposed to define the United States. I'm against nations that openly advocate against the United States. That's Israel. They openly do it. They buy the U.S. Congress. Hey, Sabby, I got a good idea. Let's create a political action committee. We're going to call it the American-Russia Public Affairs Committee. And we're going to go to Russia. We're going to go to Russia and we're going to meet with Russian oligarchs and we're going to get them to give us billions of dollars. And then we're going to come back here and we're going to say, I want to spend $100 million to buy Congress on behalf of the American-Russia Political Affairs Committee. You don't think there would be any problems with that, do you? You don't think the FBI might get a little worried about that. And yet that's exactly what happens with the American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee. They brag about spending $100 million to buy the United States Congress for the state of Israel. And there's no problem for this. I mean, come on now.
Crazy stuff. Scott Ritter, thank you so much for your time. Anything you got coming up that you want to announce?
Well, I've got a new book out, Highway to Hell, the Armageddon Chronicles. It talks about the danger of nuclear war. And I've got a Project 38, that's designed to promote disarmament policy by bringing attention to the 38 minutes of terror felt by the citizens of Hawaii on January 13th, 2018, when they received that text message on their phone about a missile inbound. Take shelter immediately. It's not a drill. And they thought they were going to die. And for 38 minutes, they were crying, calling their loved ones and all that. And so I'm making a documentary film called 38 Minutes that's trying to capture that so I can challenge the American public and say, if the missile was coming in and you knew you were going to die, if you were given the power to go back 6 months and do whatever was necessary to stop that missile from flying, what would you do? And then I asked the question, why aren't you doing it now? And what I'm trying to do is get the American people to wake up to the absolute danger of nuclear, and made even more so by what we started talking about, by this orange-faced man-child in there saying that he threatened Vladimir Putin to bomb the you-know-what out of Moscow. That dangerous mindset. So 38 minutes, Project 38 is something that I'm pushing. So if people want to support that, you can go to my Substack and donate. Buy the book. Every author who writes a book would like people to read the book, but we'd also like people to buy the book, because as a writer, that's how you earn money. But so the new book, the project in my Substack, yeah.
All right. Okay, Scott, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, I apologize for being late coming in, but I needed my beauty sleep apparently. So thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Scott Ritter. I do want to finish that Essence story, so I don't want to forget about that. Let's come back to the lady with the face, okay? Now, the lady with the face, what was she saying? She's making this blah, blah, blah about how, well, we were just trying to do something different, and, we're just trying to get everything all together and just do something new. Let's continue.
It's a lazy intellectual art.
Uh-oh. Yeah, she's getting into the lazy stuff. Let me pause. Hold on. There we
Me,
go.
growing up, what is jollof rice like? I would always say it's kind of like jambalaya, because I think everybody eats beans and rice. We season it a little differently, but I think there's a lot of ways to be together than separate. I think that's just a lazy intellectual argument.
I think that they could have named it something else. Like,
Why is everything got to be lazy, right? It's like, it's because you disagree with the argument. It has to be a lazy argument, No, and I talked about this before on the show. We've talked about this multiple times. I think the argument is valid. Like I said, people paid money for a ticket expecting to see what they have seen past years going to this festival. You made significant changes to the festival. People paid money. People needed to know. Because I'm willing to bet you, had people known, and this is why they didn't tell them, had people known ahead of time, they probably wouldn't have bought those tickets. So it's sneaky. And I don't like when people try to be sneaky. They're trying to make their money though, right? Let's continue.
like the taste of the diaspora or something like that. But to make it like, they named it the Battle of Jollof, which was very big on the graphic, versus Jambalaya in this small ass font.
But was that one thing? Was that one thing out of 3 days? You know what I mean?
Sure,
At the Superdome,
that was
one thing.
That was one thing.
And there's so many different activations. There were so many different acts. This one thing means that, Africans are taking it over. I don't really, buy that.
All right, Bridget, let's hear from you.
So I'm pretty sure it's not that one thing. I'm pretty sure it's not that one thing. Maybe that's the thing that they remember or what they were told, but it's usually not just one little thing that pisses people off. And I want people to think about something for a second, right? Everybody kind of has their own theme, their own events and their own cultural events, their own festivals, etc. And I just want you to imagine what it would have been like if this happened to someone else. Take Carnival, for example, right? Carnival is a really big festival, really big event. There's one here in Boston. I think the one in Toronto might be the biggest one in North America, from what I understand. Anyway, it has been around for years, right? And for those who don't know, Carnival is like a Caribbean, festival. And the women, they wear these fancy costumes. And it's I don't know how to explain it, but it's a lot of glitter and shine and all that kind of stuff. And they have a parade and stuff. Here in Boston, they have a parade. They go through Boston. They've gone through Cambridge before as well. And it's that's their thing. That's their thing. It's their culture. It's their thing. So imagine if somebody came into Carnival and they said, yeah, we're going to do things different this time. And we're just going to have, we're going to add other groups to this that, this is not a part of their culture, but we're going to add them to it. And we're going to start doing things that kind of favor them a little bit more. I don't think Carnival would be okay with that. You see what I'm saying? Imagine if, every year they have the Korean festival here. They have the Greek festival. The Greek festival has really good food, by the way. If you're going to go, just go for the food. I mean, if anything, go for the damn food. Anyhow, like the Greek festival, right? Like the Korean festival. Imagine if people came in the next year and said, sorry, we're going to let this said group take over this. And now things are going to be a little bit different. And there was no warning and people paid money. Now, okay, keep that in mind. If I remember correctly, it cost me about $8 to go to the Greek festival. People pay a lot more to go to the Essence Festival. What I'm saying is the people who are upset, the people who paid money have the right to complain. Whether you agree with it or not is besides the point. I used to work in retail. The saying was the customer's always right. Even when I knew they was wrong sometimes, you know what I mean? The whole thing was like, okay, how can I resolve this for the customer? And what I'm hearing on this particular panel is instead of how can we fix it, she responds with, it's a lazy argument. I got a problem with that. I got a little bit of problem with that. Oh my God.
I mean, I saw different things as I was looking at, doing my own research, and it looked like it's a matter of opinion. Some people say they had a great time. Some people said that, it sucked. And the main thing that everyone said, though, is that Target being the title sponsor was a problem for them because we're boycotting Target. And a lot of people on TikTok and Instagram were like, hashtag boycott Target, and how that wasn't right because it's like they connected it to Caroline because it's like she used to be the head of DEI at Target. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then now they're the title sponsor at Essence. That's for the culture, which is for Black Americans, if you will. And there's been a long time that there's been this confrontation, let's say, with Black Americans and with actual Africans, because it's always been said that Africans don't like Black Americans because we're lazy or, different things of that nature. So it just depends. I think part of that comes from that underlying current that's still there against, with Black Americans and Africans as a whole. So I hate that they're disparaging us with that.
We'll continue in just a second, Bridget. We'll be.
No, we won't be right back, Isaiah. So So you had someone who used to work for the DEI at Target, and they're like, yeah, Target should be a sponsor for this festival. To me, that makes absolutely no sense. Target has been laughing in the activist faces because they signed that deal with Kai Cenat to laugh in their face. Kai Cenat has had some anti-Black comments. We played him on the show the other night. They signed that deal with him as a laugh in their face. Then they go and they sponsor the Essence Festival to laugh in your face. And this is why I said before, walk away from Target. Stop begging Target to put your products back on their shelves. Last time I checked, there are other stores. There's other companies. Start your own. All these big name people that are rolling together, whether it's Roland Martin, Pastor Jamal Bryant, Nina Turner, all these people, you guys have resources. You guys have large platforms. Roland Martin has over 1 million subscribers. You guys have, I don't understand this, man. I don't understand this at all. Get together with all your resources and start your own thing. Make a Black Target. I don't know. Make a Target-like store that is Black owned. I don't get this at all. Hell, make it a worker co-op. That way, each person owns a share of that company. But this whole, we're boycotting Target, but we are going to beg them to bring our products back. That's not how this works. And they're playing in your face. And this is why I said before, I wonder if there's some money attached to this. What is this? What is this really all about? Okay. So they get on there and they say, I'm sorry, this is hilarious. Ray's son said, Blarget. We love you, Ray's son. Whatever you want to call it. But I mean, this is just, look, come on, man. Come on, man. I don't get this. I don't get this. Like I told you, any other festival that is a cultural festival, if you were to come in and take it over and add another group to it and take it over with another group, yes, people would be upset and people would complain about it. Why is this not? Why can't, for the woman who said lazy, why can't you get this through your head? I'm sorry, Bryce. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It's just some things are just considered culturally disrespectful. And growing up, I learned those types of things. And you guys know this stuff too. We all know, like we was raised some type of, like our parents, you know, I think a lot of us, Be Easy said blasé. A lot of us were raised a certain type of ways. Like you don't disrespect the culture, right? So it's like when in your house, do as you would do. When in someone else's house, it's their house. You got to do as they would do. So yeah, man, like it's culturally disrespectful, man. Take the L. Maybe if you got to refund some people. I don't know. Lauryn Hill, honey, I've been hearing from numerous people these past couple concerts that you've been having. You've been showing up late. Some people, I know there was one she was supposed to be at one point a year or two ago, and people were waiting and she never showed up. I don't know. The guy on the panel said this time around, this was not her fault. Stephanie Mills said there's production issues in the background. So it seems like there was a lot that was going on, but it made a lot of news and a lot of noise. And I just say, like, don't be culturally disrespectful. That's it, man. That's it. Can everybody understand that? Okay. Jeez. I just can't get it. I don't understand why they're so like still trying to argue about this, about this mess. It's ridiculous. Jesus. Gil said she doing the Axl Rose shit. Axl Rose used to do that too. What time's the show? Oh, I'll be there 2 hours later. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, guys. Based. Speaking of culturally respectable, this is another one. I got to shout this out before I head out. We will continue calling next week. I'm filming tomorrow. Should be 1 to 2. Maybe I have 2 more interviews to film for the documentary. But just a reminder to everybody, I am filming the documentary called Removed. The documentary is about gentrification in Boston, about Black neighborhoods, people that were removed from those communities. So you guys, I mean, you watch me, you know this already, but for those who don't, making a documentary titled Removed about gentrification in Boston. Eric and Corey have gathered great footage so far. We are now working with the professional editor and he's doing a great job, but we need help with funds. If you can help, please donate. So guys, our goal is 10,000. We've done pretty well though. We've come pretty far. And that is to pay the editor. And I think I explained this to you. I mean, you guys know this if you watch me. If you don't watch me, you don't know this. But I put the link to that in the chat. But shout out to the editor. I don't want to name his name yet because I don't know if he wants everybody to know just yet. But he's been doing a fantastic job. We meet once a week and we go over like footage and editing and all that kind of stuff. Even with the music, like he's even helped with that. And then I have to actually interviewing someone tomorrow morning to go along with this documentary. So it's been great, like putting this together. And I think once you guys see it, I think then you're going to understand why when you come here to Boston, I think then you'll understand why you don't. It's not that there aren't Black people here, but I think you'll understand why you don't really see us in Boston proper, or you don't really see them in Boston proper, or you'll understand like how they were physically removed. And that's the difference with this. I've done videos before about gentrification, but there's a difference between being priced out and being physically removed, where your homes were torn down. So there's a big difference there. Rich said Sabby Stone. Bucky said Atlanta had the same problem. Yeah, it's all over. I feel like in Boston it's hidden though. I feel like a lot of people who live here, more so like transplants, I feel like they have no idea these things took place and what's taking place right now. I feel like they just don't know. So, hoping to educate people about that. Okay, let me go to the super chats. I don't want to forget these. Thank you, Roger. Found a way to clear out Congress. Check rock. I will do that. Thank you, Gamble. The theocratic prescription is to attack, conquer, and subdue non-Christians, specifically Muslims and pagans, since Nicholas versus Dum Diversas in 1452. Interesting. Shout out to Marlon Wells, who's been a member for 5 months. Watching mainstream media is the same as sitting in and listening to an APAC meeting on duopoly maintenance. There you go. Thank you, Gamble. So suddenly Black American freedmen are intellectually lazy because we want to preserve our time-honored cultural staples and demand good standards. Yeah, that's what I was saying. I don't know. I have a feeling like people are going to be, she's going to get like roasted for that one. Thank you, Marvin. Thanks, Sabby. Scotty on fire. Great show today. Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Oh, shoot. I missed this one. Sorry. Sabby, could you please ask Scott if he has any information about SBU official who was assassinated? No, but I can look into that. Sorry, Jay. Thank you for the super sticker, Karina Kleiss. And thank you, Wishmaster. Hubble is the god of Israel. Their flag represents Saturn. The Star of David can be seen on top of Saturn. Allah is the moon god, aka Hubble. His spaceship orbits Saturn. He's an angel, aka extraterrestrial. Well, that is interesting. Thank you, W1. Caroline Wenga was the chief DEI at Target before Essence Fest. Yeah, that's what she was just mentioning that in the video. And thank you, Ira. Nanette is the woman calling the argument lazy, a former radio host of Nigerian descent that got into an argument with Pimp C of UGK and tried to get him banned from radio. She's no longer a radio host. Well, damn. Drama. Let's get to that comment on Rockfin. Hey. Drama. Return of the Mac. Oh my gosh. Here I go. Dun. All right, let's put this up here. That's one of those songs that always gets stuck in my head, man, for real. Thank you, Roger. I can't really share this to the screen because Eric's at the game tonight. So I'm just going to read it. It says, put it over here. Just got off Zoom with TAG, Taxpayers Against Genocide. I missed the last few weeks. Seth informed me that activist lawyers told them the lawsuit against using the Leahy Act won't win in federal court system. They're all in the tank. So now they're pursuing taking it straight to the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights to refer to ICC for prosecution at The Hague. At best, under ideal conditions, we can clear out Congress prosecuting them all. Interesting. Thank you for the tip, Dave. Thank you for interviewing Oliver Stone, Sabby. Now let's push respect for all people suffering within the American market economy. And thank you for this one, Roger. We can either bring all of them up on charges in an ideal scenario, or at worst, bring Pelosi, Schumer, McConnell, Toomey, Johnson, and Jeffries on charges. What would happen if those in charge of Irish Fest let Italians take charge? How would that go down? Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. Like, it's just culturally insensitive. It's just like, I don't even know how to say, you know what I mean? I saw people fighting with each other back and forth about this on social media. I'm like, you ain't got to even go get into all of that. It's just make it very clear. It's culturally disrespectful. You wouldn't like it if someone did that to you. Period. All right, guys, that is it for me tonight. Call in will resume next week. Again, I am filming tomorrow, so I hope you guys have a good weekend. Sunday live stream, 5 p.m. Eastern. Shama Sawant will be here to discuss her congressional race. So, see you guys then. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.